The beauty known across the continent, the Emperor's most prized jewel, high society's queen, Agnes Saint, walks through the Knight's Hall, her dress swaying lightly with every step. Yet today, she wears not a gown for a ball, but plain boots and the uniform of a healer for the Black Knights. She enters the commander's office, where a sharp voice greets her with an order. She has a patrol mission alone. The man is curious how much she can really accomplish when all she ever does is wear dresses and admire herself in mirrors. The man before her is none other than the infamous Kylo Grey, a Black Knight. His words sting, but they also make her heart skip. He hands her a small pistol. She tilts her head and replies calmly that she will do her best. Another knight hesitates, worried, and asks what will happen if something dangerous arises. Kylo replies dryly that if it's truly scary, she can just call out to His Majesty. Agnes rolls her eyes at the sarcasm, but inwardly she grins. His low, deep voice stirs something inside her, and the cold, expressionless face she usually sees becomes disarming when he smiles slyly, teasing. For a moment, she thinks she might be in trouble. And yet, when she considers that this perfect-looking man hides an inferiority complex and jealousy beneath his composed exterior, her own heart begins to race. Not long ago, she became unalive by mistake. It wasn't her time yet. So she entered a world inside a novel to make up for her unfair elimination. But there's a problem. The character she takes on has a man she was meant to court for a while, and her relationship with her crush is miserable. Sadly, she's known for being second place in the nastiest personality rankings. She knows that if she continues on this path, changing the original story will be impossible, let alone getting close to Kylo. Her plan is clear. She will make everyone notice Kylo again. His title will become the man for whom the princess abandoned the hero of the Empire and became an obsessed follower. Agnes blinks as the world comes into focus. She's in the princess's body, and the first thing she sees is Kylo. Her heart skips. She recognizes him immediately. Her favorite character, the one she has secretly called Little Kitten for so long. Standing there, in front of him, she feels a strange mixture of joy, fear, and disbelief. And then it hits her. She has slapped him. 3 times. Her hand moved on its own, and she cannot understand it. Her mind drifts to a post she once saw online. It asked what someone would do first if they entered a novel to meet their favorite character. Back then, she had answered simply, she would catch him and feed him all the delicious food in the world. He deserved to live a life far happier than anyone could imagine. She had wanted to make him smile, to protect him, to cherish him. And now, she has done the exact opposite. She feels a little dizzy thinking about it. When he holds her hand, she reacts instinctively. She tells him to let go and questions how he dares touch her with what she calls filthy hands. But deep inside, she knows his hands are not filthy at all. Overwhelmed by the situation, she convinces herself that it must be a dream. Maybe this is all some trick of her mind. But even as she clings to that thought, everything around her feels too vivid, too real. And then, she loses consciousness. Agnes Saint has many titles. She is the Emperor's most treasured gem, the Queen of Society, the most beautiful lady on the continent, and the Empire's own time bomb. She is also the princess who, not long ago, got drunk and caused a scandal at the banquet celebrating the end of the war. That night, she embarrassed herself, the Empire, and the knights who had risked everything for their people. Kylo watches from nearby, feeling a strange mix of pity and frustration. Seeing her treated so carelessly by the Imperial family strikes him as pathetic. When 2 knights approach to check if he is all right, he barely glances at them. He simply tells them to escort Agnes back to the palace, quickly. Complaining would do no good, and yet the situation feels unbearable. The next morning, Agnes wakes in her room. Her head is heavy, her thoughts tangled. She wonders what she should do. Last night felt like a dream, yet every memory is clear to ignore. The moment she slapped Kylo keeps replaying over and over in her mind. Her mind drifts back further, to the day everything began. She had left her favorite character's birthday cafe, feeling light and happy when an accident changed her life forever. In the afterlife, a goddess explained that her death was a mistake, a flaw in the newly created soul collection system. She was never meant to die at that moment. Agnes begged to return to her life, but that was impossible. The goddess offered a new life instead, in any place she chose, real or fictional. Agnes's only request was simple. She wanted to meet her favorite character. At that moment, Agnes realizes something important. She never asked the goddess to make her slap Kylo. The thought lingers for a second, but she quickly pushes it aside. There are bigger problems to deal with. Her body has changed. She now has silver hair with a faint purple touch, bright purple eyes, and features that give her a cat-like appearance. She has reincarnated as Agnes Saint, the villain among villains. The world she has entered is from the novel Infinite Splash, a story about the overpowered hero Raymond Spencer, who fights against demons. The story is so popular online that fans even call it the unification of otakus. In the novel, the version of Agnes she now inhabits is a naive fan of Raymond, but she is also a little unhinged. Her behavior is unpredictable and sometimes reckless. On the day of the war celebration banquet, she made outrageous remarks in front of the knights who had just returned from battle. Later, drunk and careless, she even went to the Black Knights Hall and caused another scandalous scene. The one who finally stopped her was Kylo Grey. Once a nameless mercenary, now the captain of the Black Knights, he is the eternal rival of Ramond and the person Agnes' greatest adversary. Kylo hates Raymond because of his own insecurities and feelings of inferiority, so whenever they meet, he showers Raymond with curses. Because of all this, Agnes and Kylo are ranked as the top two villains in the story. The arrogant princess and the cold, harsh captain are meant to despise each other completely. And now, as Kylo's biggest fan, she can only sigh in regret. She had wished for this life, but now she realizes she is trapped in it. Deep down, it feels like she is doomed from the very beginning. It's the second day of her reincarnation. Unfortunately, Agnes's body now moves according to her will after the strange incident of slapping Kylo. A maid asks if she still has a headache, and she admits it aches just a little. On the surface, her situation might seem like a simple possession of someone else's body, but the woman who called herself a goddess had explained that her life would be sent back to the beginning of the novel after her reincarnation. True to her words, all her memories of her life as Agnes Saint remain vivid in her mind. She regrets not asking the goddess to let her start completely fresh, but giving up is not in her nature. Determined, she asks a maid where she might find Kylo Grey, remembering the trouble she caused the previous day. From this moment on, she plans to do everything she can to get closer to him. The maid looks frightened and hesitates, asking the princess what she intends to do. Agnes frowns a little. Though he had grabbed her hair roughly, it hardly seems like reason enough to punish him. She finds it frustrating to be misunderstood, but she doesn't let it bother her. Instead, she explains calmly that she only wants to meet him. Kylo had been able to stop her the night before because he belongs to the Black Knights. There are 4 Knight Orders in the Empire. The White Knights are the elite of the elite, the very best in both skill and status. The Blue Knights are talented swordsmen whose rank doesn't matter as much. The Red Knights are composed of the Empire's most outstanding mages. And then there are the Black Knights, a collection of unpredictable, dangerous individuals. Though they all have incredible skills, they can act on their own at any moment. They are called the hunting dogs of war, striking first and asking questions later. Public opinion about them is harsh, with accusations of embezzlement, assault, blackmail, and sedition following them constantly. Because of this, Kylo has always been alone, discriminated against, and misunderstood. Seeing him now, Agnes can't help but notice a reflection of her younger self in him. In her previous life, she had fallen for him secretly, always trying to catch his attention. But because he was one of the most hated characters in the story, all her efforts had failed. At the end of the first season of Infinite Splash, a major incident shook the Empire. Emperor Alexander Saint could hardly believe what he was hearing. After the war had ended, monsters were suddenly pouring out of private residences. Fissures had appeared across homes, and the temple revealed the truth. The only way to stop them was to eliminate the cause at the very top of the Snowy Mountains, a place called the End of the World. Only a handful of people were strong enough for such a task. The Empress's 2 strongest knights, Raymond Spencer, the resourceful hero with unmatched military skill, and Kylo Grey, a fighter whose experience and talent more than made up for his lack of formal training. It meant that one of them would have to risk their life. The person who stepped forward in place of the hero Raymond was Kylo. There was only one reason. He hated Raymond and refused to let him be the hero. Returning to the capital after the battle, Kylo realized he could never surpass Raymond. To protect the Empire's peace, he left a single note behind. The hero cannot die. And he sacrificed himself. Only in death could he become the hero he could never be in life. In that moment, the man who had been called a demon was finally seen in a different light. But Kylo's story didn't end there. When the author revealed his appearance on social media, fans, including Agnes, were stunned. He became an instant favorite, even receiving a birthday celebration in his honor. Now, Agnes realizes that everything can change. She can alter Kylo's future and make sure he lives comfortably, without the shadow of hatred or loneliness. With determination, she enters his office, only to see him tied up. Shocked, she questions the situation. A White Knight explains that the Chief Chamberlain ordered his restraint for her visit, ensuring he wouldn't run away. Agnes frowns and insists they untie him immediately. Surprised, they comply, and she politely shoves them out. She wonders why things always have to be so dramatic when all she wants is to be kind to him. Kylo, calm but serious, says he will accept any punishment for daring to touch her, even offering his hands to be cut off. Agnes scoffs lightly. She has no intention of doing such a thing. He then offers his neck, and she declines again. Finally, he offers to take off his knight uniform. At the thought of him slowly removing it, she feels her face heat up. Her heart beats faster, and she can't help but imagine what that would look like. He then explains that what he really meant was that he would leave the knight order if he had to. She listens, a small smile playing on her lips, and wonders how she could have thought otherwise. She briefly worries that he might see her as some kind of pervert, but pushes the thought away. Instead, she tells him they should just pretend that what happened yesterday never happened. He looks at her, a flicker of doubt in his eyes, and asks if she really means it. She nods and takes her leave. There's so much more she wants to say, but she knows this is enough for now. If she starts flirting too soon, he might think she's lost her mind. Kylo is sensitive, and she wants to move slowly, carefully. For now, she decides to be the perfect secret fan. Kylo, on the other hand, watches her leave, puzzled. Why did she come to see him? He expected some confrontation, yet she wants him to forget everything. He doesn't understand what she's up to this time, and that surprises him. Slowly, he concludes that the princess is a little naive, maybe more than he thought. He also thinks he should have worded his statement differently, but since it feels like he won this round, he doesn't mind too much. A few days pass. Since her visit to Kylo, she has been hiding herself in the princess palace, pretending to be sick. She spends her time thinking about the best way to approach him going forward. She knows that her shameful comments at the banquet the other day have damaged her reputation. After all, it was the imperial princess insulting families of knights who risked their lives in the war. She knows that no matter how carefully she acts, a wrong move could make things worse for him instead of better. So, she brainstorms acceptable explanations, ways to smooth things over without causing a scene. Suddenly, there's a knock at her door. A servant informs her that His Majesty, the Emperor, requests her presence. She straightens up and answers that she's on her way, though a small pit forms in her stomach. Is this the moment she will finally be kicked out of the imperial palace? Her family, the Saint Imperial family, rules the empire with a mix of power and prestige. They are known for developing magical weapons, the only weapons capable of defeating demons, which brought both peace and immense influence to the continent. At the top sits Emperor Alexander, the empire's ultimate authority. She enters the throne room and greets her father. He studies her, heart aching, thinking about how difficult this moment must be for her. He reminds himself that he cannot always fix his children's mistakes, but he doesn't know what else to do. Looking at her, he sees so much of his late wife that his heart weakens. Even if he tries to discipline her, he knows she won't listen. Standing there, Agnes realizes her father has suffered his share too, and perhaps that is why he appears so unsure. Finally, the Emperor speaks, offering a solution for his daughter, whose reputation has hit an all-time low. Rumors have been spreading throughout society, and until things settle, she will be staying outside the capital, banished. Her heart sinks. She cannot bear the thought of being separated from Kylo. She refuses. Her father sighs, warning that he will make another decision if she refuses. Agnes doesn't waver. She replies that she doesn't care what he asks, as long as she can stay in the capital. She imagines the worst, cleaning the stables, moving into the maids' quarters, or volunteering at the temple. But instead, her father surprises her. He appoints her as a mage for the Black Knights. She blinks in shock. He confirms it, and she nods, accepting immediately. Agnes, like most of the imperial family, was born with an abundance of magical power. Usually they are assigned to the White Knights, like her older brother, Crown Prince Damien. She herself had never gone on a mission before, thinking it too much trouble. But now her father is sending her to Kylo's side. She requests to be transferred immediately, promising she will fully commit to the role. Her father, concerned, calls for the physician, thinking something may be wrong with her. Little does he know, she's thrilled. This gives her a perfect excuse to see her favorite person every day. Her mind races with plans, how she will get him to notice her, how she will make him fall for her charms. The game has only just begun. The news spreads across the capital. People cannot believe that the Emperor has sent a member of the royal family to the Black Knights. Many think he has gone too far. Some nobles argue that she deserves it, as she has been a constant nuisance. Sirius Melville, a White Knight, observes how easily people talk about others, while Hugo Rodion admits they are not entirely wrong. Gossip among nobles is nothing new. Sirius leaves, unwilling to listen further, frustrated by how discourteous everyone is toward a lady. Hugo notes silently that Sirius may act like a gentleman, but in truth, he is obsessed with women. Soon, Diana Lennox, deputy commander of the White Knights, inquires about Sirius. Hugo explains that he did not want to hear any more criticisms of the princess, even if they were technically justified, so he left. Diana, who has been Crown Prince Damien's childhood friend, finds it typical of Sirius, yet she feels the same. The princess is Damien's only sister, and no matter how justifiable the gossip, it is unpleasant to hear about a friend's family. Saintess Liliana approaches them, her presence radiant. Observing the gathering, she notes that it seems to be a meeting of the heroes of the White Knights and wonders at the discussion that occupies them. Hugo shares the latest news, and Liliana reflects that she never expected such a decision from the Emperor. Born a commoner, Liliana rose to sainthood overnight after receiving a divine revelation. For someone so beautiful yet without status or power, attention has not always been kind. She faces scorn, mockery, and harassment from haughty nobles. However, after curing several demon-infected nobles completely, her life changes. The admiration and adoration she receives overwhelms her feelings she has never experienced before. Experiencing this duality, Liliana begins to desire something greater. Hugo Rodion, heir to the Rodion dukedom and a highly respected figure in the Knights Order. Her heart beats faster whenever he is near, and Hugo, in turn, is entirely devoted to her well-being. Liliana remains composed, noting that no one will bother her anymore, and she does not mind Princess Agnes's possible dislike, understanding that Agnes is a commoner and cannot be expected to behave otherwise. Some men show pity, but she considers them simple creatures, incapable of influencing her life. Lady Devon seems relieved, though Liliana feels the tension more keenly. She recognizes only two men in the Empire as truly suitable for her, the Crown Prince and Lord Raymond Spencer. When Raymond arrives, she quickly conveys the discussion to him. She hesitates for fear of misspeaking, aware that noble speech requires care, but Hugo reassures her silently, valuing her honesty as one of her charms. Diana watches, thinking Liliana challenges others so openly, while Hugo remains entirely unaware. Meanwhile, Princess Agnes sits at the center of the commotion, sipping tea. Daisy Rodion, her lady-in-waiting, appears startled by the news. The notorious Kylo will inevitably make her life difficult, yet for reasons she cannot fully explain, Agnes feels no dread. Daisy notices her flushed face and wonders if she has a fever, considering calling the physician, but Agnes declines. She reflects that Daisy is the only attendant unafraid of her, a fact both comforting and unsettling. Questions arise in her mind about what the Knights could possibly do now. With the war over, there will be few missions left. Daisy silently agrees. Soon, a headache strikes Agnes, and she asks Daisy to leave. The citizens of the Empire continue celebrating their victory over the demons, unaware that peace is fleeting. The princess, however, knows the precise time and place of the next demon appearances. She plans to prevent all casualties in the eastern region 6 months from now and ensures that Kylo receives the credit for it. Lost in these thoughts, she fails to notice her brother entering. Daisy, departing, greets him, and Agnes internally questions the sudden arrival of her brother, noting his presence without warning. His expression suggests that her greetings retain the same casual disrespect as always. Earlier, Damien walks alongside his father, deep in thought. The Emperor remarks that something about Agnes seems off, though the royal physician insists there is nothing wrong with her. Yet the Emperor notices the small details. She did not throw a fit when barred from attending banquets, and she accepted her assignment to the Black Knight Order without protest. Damien struggles to make sense of it. His brother mutters to himself that Agnes was never entirely in her right mind. Their father then proposes a more unusual explanation. Perhaps she was bewitched by one of the strange spellbooks circulating among high society these days. Damien scoffs quietly. She isn't that crazy. Still, the Emperor orders him to go check on her. Damien hesitates, but ultimately accepts the task. When he enters her room, Damien glances around, expecting to find some sinister tome, but there is nothing unusual. His gaze lands on a young woman at the door, the daughter of Duke Rodion. She confirms her identity and quietly departs. Damien turns his attention back to Agnes, studying her silently for a long moment before breaking the silence. He questions when she will stop worrying their father and warns that her reckless behavior will make it impossible for her to find a good husband, regardless of her royal status. Agnes remains mute, absorbing his words. Damien leans closer, cautioning her not to bring any more shame to the royal family. Though their father may be lenient, he will not tolerate repeated missteps. He urges Agnes to embrace her duties as a mage in the Black Knight Order. Surprisingly, she responds calmly, showing none of the disrespect he anticipates. Damien's brow lifts in astonishment, but he reminds her not to forget the promise she has just made. As Agnes watches him leave, her thoughts swirl. She feels a warmth she has never known, the happiness of finally having a family she lacked in her past life. Yet frustration bubbles beneath the surface. Why did she have to end up with a brother like Damien? He acts charming and sweet to the world, yet with her he is irritable and exacting. She admits that the real Agnes would have given him plenty of reason to behave this way, but the older man's warning about husbands strikes her as absurd. Still, she pushes the thought aside, recognizing the times she lives in, a cutting-edge era where airships sail the skies and automated machines till the fields. Agnes contemplates confronting Damien, eager to retort, but she restrains herself. Tomorrow marks her official start in the Black Knight Order, and she must focus. She dons the uniform, noting how it suits her far better than her previous White Knight attire. She imagines it as a matching outfit for Kylo, envisioning herself standing confidently by his side. The maids debate whether to compliment her, worried she might misinterpret their words, and Agnes teases them by noting how awkward they seem. Calmly, she assures them she will fulfill her duties and demonstrate her virtues as a royal. With that, she dismisses them and heads out, ready to step into the Black Knight Order fully prepared. Inside Kylo's office, a knight doubts the princess will even show up, waging his status as proof of his certainty. A few days earlier, the Emperor had cautioned Kylo about Agnes's delicate upbringing. Losing her mother at a young age, growing up lonely, and facing tragedies like the death of her nanny had left her fragile and timid. Rumors suggested selfishness, but the truth was far simpler. Agnes was soft-hearted, terrified by reminders of her painful past. Managing her was harder for the Emperor than any state affair. Now, as a practical subordinate of Kylo, she is to experience life's bitter realities. The Emperor instructs Kylo to assign her lowly, unpleasant tasks, believing that such trials might instill strength. Hugo contemplates the opportunity. By following the Emperor's wishes, he may earn favor, reclaim his dignity, and even exact subtle revenge on those who had scorned him, including the princess herself. Returning to the present, Kylo tells the knight beside him that if the princess doesn't show, she will regret it. Moments later, Agnes opens the office door, announcing her arrival. The room falls silent for a heartbeat, eyes fixed on her, stunned by the presence of the princess stepping into her new role. Hugo can hardly believe that Princess Agnes willingly came. He suspects she hasn't fully grasped the situation yet. As he speaks, he recalls that His Majesty had explicitly warned him not to give her any preferential treatment. By arriving in her uniform, she is signaling that she understands what awaits. She must be ready to follow his orders without complaint, prepared to crawl if necessary. Hugo assures her, in a voice that balances authority and composure, that he will set aside any personal feelings and treat her just like every other member of the Black Knight Order. He hands her the appointment letter, formally welcoming her as a full-fledged member. Yet, as he studies her, Hugo notices something unusual. Having grown up as an illegitimate child, he is used to disdainful looks and whispered judgment. But Agnes's gaze is different. She doesn't simply look at him with annoyance. She looks at him as if he were a pest, the most worthless trash imaginable. It unsettles him, and he finds himself wondering what she is truly thinking. Meanwhile, Agnes cannot help but admire him. His mocking tone stirs something in her. She marvels at how his refined, priest-like features harmonize perfectly with his cold, commanding expression. Her thoughts linger on his solid, broad chest and the undeniable aura of strength that radiates from him. And she feels a flutter of excitement, despite knowing she shouldn't. She keeps admiring him silently while Hugo, misreading her contemplative look, worries that she must be plotting something. Hugo wastes no time, assigning her first mission. Agnes's mind immediately jumps to more romantic fantasies, half joking that perhaps this is her first date with him. But the reality is far less flattering. Kylo informs her that she will be sent to oversee post-war restoration work in the eastern outskirts of the capital, the A-15 region. The Black Knights have been tasked with inspecting the area, ensuring no demonic beasts linger before construction crews move in. To her dismay, she learns she will go alone. Her first thought, surely this is a mistake. She is a healer, hardly a combatant, armed with nothing more than a small pistol. If she encounters a demonic beast, she is essentially doomed. She had imagined she and Kylo would go together, making this mission feel more like an adventure or a test of courage in his company. But now she faces the daunting reality. Despite the danger, she resolves to do her best, determined to uphold her duty. Nearby, Jeremy whispers his concern, questioning the wisdom of sending the princess alone. Hugo responds bluntly. If she's truly afraid, she can always beg her father for help. He conceals a crucial detail. While inspecting the region, he had already ensured that the area was completely evacuated. The village is now a barren wasteland, left with only the scars of war and the lingering tension of uncertainty. Every ruined building, every shadowed corner is a lesson in fear, meant to humble the princess and teach her restraint. Despite the severity of the task, Hugo is confident that nothing genuinely dangerous will occur, and he dismisses Jeremy to focus on his patrol duties. Elsewhere, Sirius observes news of the mission and reacts with disgust, cursing Kylo Grey under his breath. Raymond, puzzled, asks what has provoked such ire. Sirius explains that he overheard Kylo send the princess to the A25 region alone, armed with only a small weapon. Raymond ponders, reasoning that Kylo is ambitious but disciplined. He would never risk the wrath of the Emperor recklessly. Perhaps this is part of a larger plan to teach the princess humility. Sirius acknowledges the slim possibility, yet anxiety gnaws at him. He fears she could be severely injured. Deciding to act, he plans to check on her personally, but patrol duties call. Raymond reluctantly steps in to supervise her instead, telling Sirius to give Kylo a proper scolding for underestimating the challenge. As Sirius departs, Raymond mutters in frustration, lamenting his role. He had thought that with Agnes transferred to the Black Knights, he would finally be free from her tantrums and schemes. Yet, on her very first day, he is drawn back into the chaos. He suspects that some of this is due to Kylo's machinations, but part of him blames the princess herself. Her self-serving advances and blind obsession have become more than he can endure. He longs for a reprieve from the turmoil she brings. Meanwhile, Agnes sets eyes on the place she is headed to. Back in the Black Knight office, Victor Craven, a seasoned member, reports to Kylo that he is heading back to Region A15 to finish what was left incomplete the previous day. Kylo raises an eyebrow, surprised that the task wasn't already done. Victor explains that while he submitted the report ahead of time for convenience, the actual scouting didn't finish. The previous day, one of the scouts panicked because her cat had gone missing, and she insisted it might be hiding in his clothes. They had to cut the inspection short in return, which is why he must go back now. Kylo rises immediately, a frown darkening his face. He should have anticipated this. He chastises himself inwardly for trusting them. His mind races. What if the princess is already in danger? Meanwhile, in Region A15, Agnes encounters a group of Black Knights blocking her path. They question what brings her here, as though she were intruding. She is surprised. They should have already known of her arrival. Realizing the inspection must have been completed already, she explains that she is here on her commander's orders. After a moment of hesitation, they let her pass, though skepticism lingers in their eyes. As she continues, Agnes reflects on the situation. Kylo isn't cruel. He may be sarcastic, rude, or a little insecure, but he wouldn't intentionally harm her. This seems more like one of his devious stunts to scare her a bit. Nothing more. She is grateful that the town had been evacuated in advance. Fewer lives were at risk. Her thoughts wander to Raymond, a young, brilliant strategist celebrated for his ability to anticipate the movements and methods of demonic beasts. He commands respect effortlessly, his skill and tragic backstory making him someone impossible not to admire. Yet she cannot forget Kylo, who had personally fought on the front lines, showing unmatched bravery but receiving little recognition. Agnes decides she will feign terror upon her return to emphasize the peril Kylo endured, giving her a chance to subtly impress. Suddenly, movement catches her eye. Her heart jumps. Could it be a demonic beast? Her mind races. Maybe she wandered into an uninspected area, or perhaps the scouts missed something. But as she focuses, relief floods her. It's just a small cat, clearly not stray as it allows her to hold it without fear. She suspects it was abandoned during the wartime evacuation and notices that it is badly injured. Instinctively, she begins healing it, patting it gently and deciding to take it along on her patrol, planning to search for its owner afterward. Her moment of calm is interrupted by a sound behind her. She spins to see a beast emerging, her pulse quickening as she wonders if it will attack. Before she can react, someone intervenes, striking the creature. She turns to see Kylo, his presence commanding and reassuring. He quickly checks if she is unharmed, apologizing for the error in the report and insisting he hadn't intentionally put her in danger. He hands her his handkerchief and she seizes it immediately, dabbing her face. He explains that some knights failed to do a thorough job, and once he realized it, he rushed to her aid. Agnes's heart flutters. Finally, the moment she has been waiting for. A chance to be alone with him under real circumstances. She seizes the opportunity, suggesting they inspect the remaining areas together. Just as she feels the excitement of the date setting in, someone steps into view. Raymond. Agnes freezes in surprise, caught off guard by the sudden appearance of the celebrated strategist. Raymond dismounts from his horse, immediately noticing Kylo's presence and muttering that he's causing trouble again. He hands the princess something to wipe the blood off her face. Agnes takes it without hesitation, dabbing carefully. Kylo watches, recalling that he had given her his handkerchief earlier. A flicker of doubt crosses his mind. Had it become too soiled for her to use? She hadn't touched it, after all. Raymond motions for her to wait inside a carriage he has summoned. As she departs, Kylo notices the sharp edge in her expression. Her furious glare makes him wonder if she blames him for interfering with her chance to be with Raymond. Though he hadn't intended for it to happen, a pang of irritation crosses him. Soon, Raymond calls Kylo, warning him to let the incident slide this time, but to ensure it never happens again. "This is the capital, not a battlefield," he says. "You can't be selfish and still expect to get what you want." Kylo bristles, internally questioning who gives him the right to dictate terms. He feels as though Raymond is already acting like the princess's husband. Outwardly, he responds courteously, acknowledging the advice. After all, it is coming from the Empire's celebrated hero. But in his mind, he wonders if Raymond doesn't see that he is overstepping. He was tasked by His Majesty to supervise the princess, not to play nanny, and certainly not to have someone else chase after her. Raymond, without a word, walks away after warning him to watch his tongue. Kylo curses him silently, convinced that Raymond is scheming to manipulate the princess's heart and ultimately position himself as the Emperor's son-in-law. He despises how Raymond treats him like power-hungry trash, yet in Kylo's mind, they are not so different. One day, he vows, he will reveal all of Raymond's secrets for the world to see. Meanwhile, inside the carriage, Agnes wrestles with her own thoughts. What is Raymond doing here? This was supposed to be her dream date with Kylo, and now she is forced to ride alongside someone else. Seeing him for the first time since her reincarnation, she admits to herself that he is handsome, but he's simply not her type. His frame seems too refined, too noble, his pecs too modest, his demeanor screams well-bred aristocrat. In contrast, she prefers a slightly rebellious, rough-around-the-edges charm. Kylo, in her mind, is almost perfect. So perfect that it verges on inhuman. Still, social appearances demand she act appropriately. She smiles politely, masking her true feelings, and asks Raymond what brought him here. Everyone knows him as the Empire's golden jewel, the princess's most coveted prize. Openly admitting disinterest would be unthinkable. Raymond, for his part, avoids revealing the real reason he arrived. Any hint would betray his own feelings. Instead, he explains that he is here to advise her against any behavior that might bring further embarrassment to the royal family. He instructs her to sever emotional ties with him and uphold the dignity expected of a royal. Agnes considers his words carefully. So, he wants her to stop bothering him and behave with decorum? She knows well that, unintentionally or not, she has vexed him for years. Taking a deep breath, she decides it's time to embody a woman who has been burned and broken. Finally moving on. She assures him that she will no longer be a burden or hindrance to his future, intentionally crafting a tone of delicate devastation as an excuse to stop fangirling. Raymond nods approvingly, trusting that she will stay committed to her duties going forward. She adds that he needn't go out of his way to seek her out in the future and alights from the carriage. Kylo, observing from afar, wonders if she has changed tactics. Perhaps she stopped seeking his attention because he withdrew it, or perhaps she is genuinely heartbroken. Either way, he doesn't care. As long as she no longer plagues him, he feels a sense of relief and a carefree lightness he hasn't experienced in some time. He turns his attention to other matters, heading toward the Crown Prince's palace. Damien is briefed on the incident. He expresses mild regret but notes that it doesn't seem serious. After all, His Majesty had permitted the events to unfold, and perhaps Agnes needed a little taste of her own medicine. What concerns him slightly more is that Agnes promised Raymond she wouldn't trouble him anymore. Raymond confirms the conversation, but admits her tone didn't convince him. She has a habit of spouting nonsense, a trait that has made her an unpredictable obstacle in the path of the Crown Prince. Damien considers it appropriate. Agnes may be a ticking time bomb, but she's not a rival worth the effort to eliminate. Because of Princess Agnes's arrogance and self-indulgent ways, her brother Damien hopes she will be married off quickly. But the citizens of the Empire are proud and would never accept a royal marrying outside its borders. Damien has been searching the Empire for a suitable match for her, and thought his most trusted vassal and close friend Raymond would be perfect. However, Raymond is not pleased with the princess's behavior. He tells Damien that her actions are disrespectful and dishonor the royal family. Damien curses him silently. Agnes is still his little sister, and she's in love with Raymond. He thinks the commander is being far too harsh. But Damien reminds him that Agnes has already promised she won't bother Raymond anymore, so there's no need to criticize her further. Raymond acknowledges this, and their conversation ends. Yet the incident is far from over. At the princess's palace, her maids Chloe and Emma are shocked to see bloodstains on her clothes. They ask what happened. Agnes thinks to herself that both maids are known for talking too much, so she can't tell them the full story. She admits only that something nearly dangerous happened, but Kylo stepped in. She sees it as an opportunity to improve Kylo's reputation. The maids are surprised and blame the commander for failing to do his job properly. Chloe recalls passing by the Knight's Hall where Kylo glared at her in his intimidating way, and warns that the princess shouldn't trust someone like him. Agnes laughs it off, noting that it's just his social awkwardness and that his reputation is nearly as bad as hers. She realizes that improving his reputation will be an uphill battle. Agnes admits to the maids that she misjudged Sir Kylo. He is a man of strong principles, and he did save her. The maids ask if she returned with Lord Raymond, and she firmly tells them never to speak of him in her presence again. She apologizes, explaining that she cannot go into detail, but she is human and can be hurt. She says she just needs rest. The maids leave, and she smiles, thinking of them as her little songbirds who will spread the news. On their way, the maids speculate about what happened. Emma guesses something serious went wrong, while Chloe praises the princess for treating her people well. They also note that Raymond must have done something right because the princess has always been generous to him. Rumors start to spread. The gossip distorts the truth. It seems that Raymond hurt the princess so badly she finally moved on. The story exaggerates further, claiming Raymond said he would rather marry something worthless than her. The rumor reaches His Majesty, and he is furious. The Emperor curses House Spencer, Raymond's family, one of the most powerful dukedoms in the Empire. He has long hated Duke Spencer, Raymond's father, because he had once loved the Empress and had begged her to call off her wedding to the Emperor. Though the Empress had moved on, the Emperor never forgot the anger he felt. Now, Damien had befriended Raymond without the Emperor's consent, and Agnes had been drawn to him. The thought of his daughter marrying into House Spencer enrages the Emperor. The messenger advises the Emperor to calm himself, explaining that the princess has ordered her maids not to speak of Raymond anymore. This may actually be a good sign. It shows that Agnes has finally decided to move on. The rumors have spread, and everyone seems to know. Meanwhile, Kylo is shocked that Raymond actually verbally abused the princess. Kylo has never liked Raymond. From the start, he envies him for having everything Kylo could never get: high status, good manners, and a proper education. Raymond was given everything at birth, yet he treats Kylo, someone who had to fight for everything, like he is worthless. Kylo cannot understand why Raymond, a commander of the White Knights, the royal family's sworn protectors, would use the fact that the princess loves him to look down on others, even royalty. He wonders if Raymond's anger about the near accident is why he is acting differently. Kylo feels guilty knowing the princess cried because of a mistake he made. The thought ties his heart in knots. He worries that the Emperor might punish him and wants to apologize formally, but he has no idea how to talk to a woman. He also knows that being low in rank, he cannot approach the princess unless they are both in knight uniforms. He is still thinking of how to fix the problem when there is a knock on the door. The princess walks in. Kylo says her name in surprise and apologizes, calling her princess. She wonders why he isn't calling her saint, and realizes it is because of the cloak she is still wearing. The maids had made a fuss over it. She notices he won't admit she is in knight attire because of the cloak. Kylo deeply apologizes for putting her in danger and promises it will never happen again. The princess isn't here to hear apologies, but she decides to play along. She warns him that if it happens again, she will give him severe punishment, thinking to herself that it would be life imprisonment on his arms. Kylo thanks her for her mercy. She asks about the region she was unable to finish last time. Kylo knows she wants to be treated as a knight, so he explains that the person assigned to it has completed the task. She then asks about her next mission. Kylo says there are none for now and tells her to focus on training. He invites her to come with him to meet the other Black Knights. In the hall, Kylo introduces her to the members. She tells them they can treat her as an equal while she is in uniform. Victor Craven and Anna Montrose introduce themselves. Agnes notices only 2 members are present. Kylo explains that some knights are imprisoned for crimes and 2 others are out on a mission. Including those present, there are 6 available members. She is impressed that Kylo can manage such misbehaving knights. As Kylo begins to leave, she feels disappointed. She thought being in the Knight Order would mean spending every day with him, but nothing seems to go her way. Anna brings a cat, Coco, the same one from before. Anna says Coco is thanking her. The cat runs, and Agnes apologizes for startling it. Looking around, she notices the instruments at one end of the hall, which have bothered her for a while. She also thinks about how humans who were turned into zombies by demons usually have black hair and red eyes. Because of this, people with black hair and red eyes have been persecuted since the first appearance of demons. She wonders if this is why Anna is so timid. Still, she is relieved that Anna is safe since she belongs to one of her fellow knights. The princess looks at the weapons and asks which one is hers. Victor picks up one and says it's for him. Anna explains the other is for her and asks if she wants to learn how to use it. She says it's not necessary, but Anna demonstrates anyway. The princess finds it fascinating and admits she'd like to have a weapon too. They tell her that at the Imperial Weapons Workshop, the master weaponsmith can craft one for her. Anna offers to go with her, and she accepts. The Empire's progress in magical engineering comes from the violet mana ore found in its lands. The first emperor, who everyone thought was just ordinary stone, used his unique magic to turn the ore into mana stones. With them, he sealed the demons underground in a single burst of light. Centuries later, the Empire began forging weapons from mana stones. hoping that one day, a royal descendant with the first emperor's power would appear. At the weapons workshop, the master weaponsmith asks why the princess is here. She explains she wants to commission a weapon. He tells her that she must choose a mana stone that resonates with her. Anna explains that if a stone is right, her palm will feel warm. The princess tries several stones, but they feel cool. The master then gives her a special stone, one normally reserved for the emperor's personal guard. She picks it up and it's warm in her hand, though the master assures her it won't burn her. He asks what kind of weapon she wants. She wonders what else is possible besides a wand or a gun. Anna guides her as she practices using it, and the princess thinks they will try it out during a future mission. She admits to herself that she hasn't seen even a hint of Kylo lately, and no missions have been assigned. Victor and Anna seem free all the time, so she wonders what keeps Kylo busy. Victor eventually says it's boring and suggests they leave. She reflects that with no missions and everyone avoiding her, life is peaceful but also incredibly dull. As they leave, they say goodbye. Soon, the princess notices a gathering of white knights. She decides to approach since she's the princess and they can't stop her. She recognizes 3 of them and wonders if a woman with them, not in uniform, is Saintess Liliana. She recalls Liliana's rivalry with Hazel Devon for the role of female lead in the original story. The princess listens as Liliana asks why His Majesty assigned Princess Agnes away from the White Knights, suggesting it was to strengthen the other 3 knights. Liliana also wonders why, since the White Knights and Lord Raymond work the hardest. Hugo quietly reminds her that discussing such matters is considered disrespectful. Liliana doesn't care. The princess finds it interesting, thinking Liliana doesn't understand old noble customs because she was born a commoner. The knights continue talking about the rumor that Raymond verbally abused the princess. Agnes notices that Hugo responds, while Diana and Sirius just watch silently. She understands Diana's caution, but wonders why Sirius, known as a flirt and womanizer, stays so serious. He would never act that way toward a commoner. Meanwhile, Liliana says it's unfortunate what happened to the princess, but notes that Agnes has hurt others too, only crying when the tables turn. Diana warns them to stop talking, worried someone might overhear. Liliana questions why Diana interrupts her every time. She wonders if Diana's discomfort comes from being unable to match Liliana's way of speaking as a noble. Hugo suggests Diana apologize to her. The princess notices that something feels off and wonders if Liliana has always been this way. She seems like an absolute angel with Raymond, kind and graceful. Yet she clearly has a hidden talent for stirring up trouble. The princess notes that the seemingly angelic saintess is actually like a white lotus, beautiful, yet with a hidden sharpness. She wonders why the author didn't reveal this interesting detail sooner. Sirius quietly cautions her, while Hugo raises his voice, questioning why Sirius is scolding her. Then a voice calls out, asking about the commotion. It's Hazel Devon, known in the novel as everyone's dream girl and the perfect image of loveliness. Diana quickly asks if Hazel's mission went well. Hazel replies that she went with the commander, so it did. Liliana asks where Lord Raymond is, and Hazel says he's probably in his quarters. Liliana then wonders if Hazel has heard the rumors about him. Hazel dismisses them as baseless, saying that Lord Spencer would never make such hurtful remarks. She adds that the commander despises women who bother him just as much as he despises demons. Liliana stays silent for a moment before saying she will take her leave. Hugo offers to escort her, and the princess notices that Hugo seems like someone secretly pining after Liliana in the novel. But seeing him in person, she thinks he's just another fan like herself. Hazel says she will head back as well, and the princess decides to leave quietly. Suddenly, they hear footsteps. Sirius immediately draws his sword and rushes toward the sound, only to see the princess. He calls out to her, but she questions why he still has his weapon drawn. He lowers it and apologizes. Then he asks if she overheard their conversation. Sirius thinks to himself that this is bad, and wonders what kind of trouble she might stir up. The princess tells him not to tell anyone that she heard everything, because she doesn't want to cause more problems. Sirius, surprised, asks if the rumors are actually true. He repeats what the rumors said, claiming that Raymond supposedly said she was meant for the gutters rather than the imperial palace. The princess wonders how the rumors got so exaggerated. She firmly states that Raymond never said anything like that. Sirius presses, asking what he actually said. The princess shrugs, saying she has no desire to dredge up that day's events. Sirius suspects she's protecting the commander, even if the rumors are partly true. She insists that they keep the incident to themselves and begins to leave. Later that evening, Kylo sees Victor and Anna. He asks if they have been out training. They confirm and explain that they were helping the new member test her weapon. Kylo asks if the princess gave them a hard time, and Anna smiles, saying she wouldn't do that. She adds that the princess is kind and always treats Coco gently. Kylo finds it hard to believe. questioning if Anna might be misunderstanding. He thinks to himself that the two of them have little authority and often focus only on their own interests, but they might be the only people in the palace able to see the princess without bias. He decides that he will find out the princess's true nature soon enough. Victor mentions that Kylo rarely leaves his office, so Anna and he ask what brought him out suddenly. Kylo explains that he heard the princess has been assigned a new mission, so he came to make sure she's informed. He adds that he will be going along with every member of the Black Knight Order currently stationed in the capital. The next day, Sirius stands by a wall, lost in thought. He remembers when he was young and often visited the Imperial Palace as the Crown Prince's playmate. Even back then, Princess Agnes was remarkable, arrogant, domineering, and prone to tantrums if things didn't go her way. But over time, he understood her. Those behaviors were cries for attention and affection. She lost her mother and nanny at a young age. Her father was always busy, and her only brother was cold to her because of status differences. She couldn't have normal friendships and was always separated from those she once cared about. She had been lonely her whole life. People who spent time around her could never truly hate her because they saw her loneliness. Sirius thinks about the commander, who knows all of this yet lashes out at her anyway. He remembers the day the princess went on her first mission, the day he urged the commander to go check on her. If he hadn't insisted, they wouldn't have met, and the princess wouldn't have suffered. He blames himself and wonders what he should do next. In the Imperial Palace banquet hall, the Emperor is having a meal. He notices that the princess looks more withered than usual. According to his report, Agnes has been training diligently with the Black Knights every day. He concludes that entrusting her to Kylo Grey was the right decision. Though he thinks she looks tired, there's another reason for her appearance. The princess tells her father that she must leave early for the next day's mission. He allows it. Finally, the mission she's been waiting for has arrived. A long 4-day, 3-night trip with her favorite commander. She has been so excited that she hasn't slept, but she isn't the least bit tired. She even hides a mini camera in her cloak for the journey. She notices the White Knights' wagon and wonders if they are leaving for their mission too. She knows the White Knights usually head to the nearest region, while the Black Knights are sent to the farthest, hardest-hit areas. She glances at all the luggage and thinks about how the Black Knights, once cannon fodder during the war, are now sent to remote regions. Their mission is assigned by Raymond Spencer, Supreme Commander of the 4 Knight Orders and Commander of the White Knights. Thinking about it, she doesn't feel bad about the rumors circulating about him. Suddenly, her eyes meet Raymond's, and she quickly looks away, wondering why he's staring. Then she searches for Kylo and spots him immediately. Kylo sees all his members gathered and speaks. He tells them they are heading to Region SP3, the area hit hardest during the war. Their mission is to visit residents and shelters, help with rebuilding, and inspect villages under reconstruction. Soldiers will accompany them as the journey covers a long distance. Kylo asks if everyone is ready. The princess affirms first. He scowls and asks if she thinks it's a fun little day trip. He warns that the mission will be very difficult and that demonic beasts may appear in the region. She smiles and thinks she'll stick close to the commander to stay safe. Kylo realizes her thought is a reminder to himself to protect her carefully, so nothing like the last time happens again. She also knows her father won't allow her to get hurt. Kylo quietly concludes that the mission will be as challenging as he thought. The princess notices him standing silently and asks why he isn't moving. She reminds him they should get going. Kylo thinks to himself that this mission is nothing short of babysitting, but the princess smiles, making it impossible to complain. They travel for a while. Night falls, and Kylo decides they should spend the night here and continue their journey the next day. He tells everyone to prepare to settle in as he goes to scout the surrounding area. The soldiers in attendance begin their work, while the princess watches them, unsure of what to do. She doesn't want to sit idle, yet this is her first time on such a mission, and she doesn't know where to start. After a moment, she decides to throw herself into the task of making an extraordinary meal, determined to contribute in some way. Shortly after, Kylo returns. He pauses, frowning at the sight of the lavish dinner before him. They were only supposed to have simple beef jerky soup. He glances at the lobster spread across the table, and then at the soldiers, who seem unusually relaxed and friendly with the princess. He thinks she must have complained about the food earlier and the soldiers went out to catch the lobster themselves. He considers it a waste of energy and notes that she clearly thinks they are on some kind of picnic. One of the soldiers mentions that they thought lobster was only something served in fancy restaurants. The princess laughs softly and urges Kylo to eat as well. After a moment's hesitation, he accepts, though he maintains his usual stern expression. The next day, they march all day until they reach a shelter near Region SP3. News spreads quickly through the area that the Black Knights and Her Royal Highness are arriving. Some villagers whisper that they prefer Saintess Liliana to the princess. Others explain that it is likely because no one here has ever been demonized. Still, they hope the princess treats them kindly and not like servants. Upon arrival, the knights are greeted by a village elder. Kylo asks to be updated on the condition of the sick, and the elder leads him to a small infirmary. Children playing nearby pause, staring at the princess. At first, they mistake her for Saintess Liliana, but one child corrects them, pointing out that the princess has black hair. She approaches them warmly, greets them, and thanks them for showing her where the sick are. 2 diseases have originated from demonic influence in the region. The first, called demonization, turns the victim's skin pitch black and drives them to madness, attacking others like monsters. Only Liliana can purify those affected. The second disease, rarer and terminal, slowly necrotizes the entire body and cannot be cured by Liliana's purification. Only a light mage, a rare individual who has reached the highest level of magical mastery, can heal it. Princess Agnes, the youngest light mage in existence, realizes this is the perfect opportunity to both help the villagers and improve Kylo's image. She steps into the house where the sick are, preparing to heal them. Shortly after, Anna informs Kylo that the supply of portable water has been cut off. The only water from the village main has been polluted with demonic blood. Something is wrong with the river. Kylo frowns, surprised that a village with a river came unprepared with clean water. He recalls that the princess has purification abilities, though she has never used them in such a situation before. He doubts she would cooperate willingly, but he must know where she is. Victor answers immediately, and Kylo moves without hesitation. He worries that if she attempts a bold act with the sick, the uproar will fall squarely on him, and the Emperor will hold him accountable. As he nears the house, he hears cries from within. His heart tightens. He wonders what kind of havoc has already unfolded. Throwing the door open, he sees the princess at the center of the room, her hands glowing softly as she heals the sick. Even his own arms, slightly injured from the march, are restored by her touch. The villagers watch in awe, whispering that it is a miracle. They offer words of thanks and praise, grateful for her help. Princess Agnes, feeling the weight of their gratitude, turns and notices Kylo standing in the doorway. The villagers shout in amazement, their voices filled with gratitude, declaring that they've been healed. Their joy and relief are overwhelming, and they cannot help but thank the princess profusely. She waves them off modestly, insisting that she is merely one of the knights, only following her commander's orders. Still, she tells Kylo that seeing their happiness means the world to her. Then, curiosity gets the better of her. She asks if there is something he needs from her. Kylo explains the problem with the village river, questioning whether she can purify it. He pauses, biting back the thought that she must be exhausted after all she's done. The princess, however, seizes this as an opportunity for closeness. She leans against him, noting lightly that she feels a little dizzy. Kylo suggests she takes a proper break, but she insists she only needs to lean on him briefly. She reassures him that she can purify the river once they arrive, as long as she has his support along the way. Carrying her proves more taxing than he expects, but he does so silently, noting the surprise in her expression as she realizes this is actually happening. Soon, they reach the river. The village elder observes that the water is even worse than it was in the morning. Kylo thinks the princess must be feeling weaker than she shows, having remained quiet in his arms for the entire journey. Yet, she still insists on trying, demonstrating her unwavering sense of responsibility. He feels her grip tighten, slightly worried, but admires her resolve. She assesses the river and decides that purifying it all at once would be too much. Instead, she plans to purify only the water they need immediately, leaving the upstream problems for later. She requests as many barrels as possible, and the knights dutifully fetch and fill them. The princess channels her magic, and Kylo instructs that the purified water be transported to the shelter for the villagers. She marvels at her own success, realizing she managed to purify everything, despite doubts about her ability. Kylo checks on her, asking if she feels dizzy again. She admits to struggling a bit and hints that she may need to be carried back in the same manner she arrived. Silently, she reminds herself that she can lean on him without hesitation, so a little dizziness is nothing. Suddenly, she collapses. Kylo calls her name urgently as she loses consciousness. In the haze of unconsciousness, her mind drifts to memories of her previous life. Gossipers had once whispered about her solitary nature, her mother's scandalous abandonment, and her father's infamous drunken rages that shattered windows throughout the neighborhood. They demanded she apologize or make amends for the family's misdeeds. Those old feelings of gloom and isolation rise within her. A lifetime spent being an outcast due to her family's reputation. Yet, the presence of Kylo, a loner like herself who fought with unwavering determination even unto death, eases her loneliness. Thinking of him as the light of her life, she resolves silently that she would do anything for him. And she wakens, questioning if she really fainted. A small, warm smile tugs at her lips as she realizes she was so happy being held by Kylo that she never noticed how weak she had felt. Kylo checks on her, his voice steady, asking if she is all right. She remains silent, pondering if he had cared for her entirely by himself. He reassures her, explaining that there is no serious concern and that she merely passed out from exhaustion. He tells her to rest until she feels ready, and that they will head out immediately to search the restricted area afterward. As she lies there, she notices something different. He seems calmer, cooler than before, yet there is a comforting warmth in seeing his face the moment she wakes. Earlier, sensing that she was having a rough day, Kylo had decided to wake her, and she had whispered his name, which sparks a quiet curiosity in him. He wonders why she did so. The next day, the villagers glance at the princess with concern, whispering among themselves about whether she is truly all right after pushing herself so much for their sake. They murmur over the lingering rumors surrounding her, shaking their heads as they conclude that people are simply too eager to latch on to anything unusual, twisting stories into exaggerations. Shortly after, the knights approach her, offering their greetings. The princess is taken aback. She had never imagined that people would treat her so differently after only a single day of interaction. The change in their demeanor, the warmth in their voices, makes her feel a quiet surge of gratitude. The commander soon steps forward, his expression composed but sharp, questioning if she is ready to set out. He notes that she looks better than yesterday, and she responds politely, reassuring him that she's fine and offering a soft word of thanks. They begin to move out, the mission for the Black Knights clearly outlined. They are to scout the village and surrounding area to ensure that the villagers can safely return to their homes. The commander informs her that they will split into 2 teams for efficiency. Victor and Anna will form one team, while she will accompany him. The princess hesitates for a moment, realizing it is just the 2 of them, a thought that makes her pulse quicken slightly. The commander calls her forward, and she mounts her horse with careful grace. He mentions that since hers is not a war-trained steed, riding alongside him is safer, and she joins him within seconds, feeling the closeness as they fall into step together. They travel for a short while until they reach a point where the commander informs her that they will need to dismount and scout on foot. She questions the reasoning, and he calmly explains that the wild instincts of demonic beasts likely mean they are hiding somewhere in the dense forest, waiting to ambush. She asks nervously what would happen if one of these creatures were to attack the warehouse, and he assures her that the specialized structure is secure enough to withstand most threats, though if the situation escalates, it has a way of protecting itself. As they prepare to advance, she notices that he offers her his hand, a small gesture of reassurance. She smiles gently and takes it, feeling a warmth spread through her. Kylo wonders internally why she is smiling in that way, why he is once again stuck in a protective role, even on a mission that should belong to someone like Raymond. He recalls what she murmured in her sleep the previous night, and now the pieces begin to fit together. He thinks bitterly that for the princess, his very existence is nothing short of a nightmare, and he cannot help but feel the weight of being so deeply disliked by her. Suddenly, he hears her stiffen slightly, and questions the strange sound she seems to notice. She frowns and realizes that she may have stepped onto something unusual. He warns her not to lift her foot, but it is already too late. An intense light engulfs them. Within moments, they find themselves caught in a landmine-like trap, a device crafted by demons to separate opposing forces. The mechanism transports them to a confined space for a fixed duration. Panic flares in her mind as she wonders how long they will remain trapped, and she briefly imagines a demonic beast appearing in the small enclosure. Kylo calmly informs her that they will likely remain there for around 30 minutes, possibly 20 if luck is on their side. She exhales, realizing that, comparatively, this is not as dangerous as she feared. Alone here with Kylo, she sees an opportunity. Feeling a little dizzy from the previous day's exertion, she requests to lean on him for support. She admits softly that she has not yet recovered from casting magic back-to-back yesterday, and he nods, allowing her to rest against him. She does so, closing her eyes briefly while he feels the situation grow awkward. Kylo thinks there is really nothing about her that should appeal to him. Her habit of belittling people based on their birth, her arrogance backed by the Emperor's favor, and the way she favors Raymond over everyone else. There's nothing he should like. And yet, he notices the scent she carries. Is it a floral perfume or is it just her natural smell? He feels her hand and notices how soft her skin is, wondering quietly if all women feel this way. Soon, she sits upright and apologizes softly, saying that her strength gave out. As she steadies herself, her mind drifts to his firm muscles, and she curses the demon beast silently for putting them in this dangerous situation. The spell that trapped them finally breaks, and Kylo exhales in relief. She glances at him, asking if he is all right, and promises that she will be more careful not to step on any more landmines. Kylo can hardly believe that she is offering him her hand. As he takes it, he remarks that landmines are difficult to spot. For a moment, he almost suggests carrying her, but he stops himself. She notices his hesitation and asks if that was what he meant. She thinks it is a great idea and adds that she should conserve her energy if she wants to purify the river properly. Kylo thinks to himself that, at this moment, he's nothing more than a servant, a mere carriage for her. He knows she doesn't see him as a human being, let alone a man. And yet, he finds himself strangely flustered. A little later, they reach a small water body. Kylo figures this is where the contamination starts. She notes that Victor and Anna are on the other side, so they should stay here and focus on purifying this part of the river first. She isn't sure she can purify it all on her own, but she can rely on the Mana Stone for extra power. Taking a deep breath, she concentrates. A soft light ascends into the sky, shimmering over the water. Slowly, the river clears and purifies itself. Kylo watches in awe, unable to hide his surprise. She can hardly believe it herself. She actually did it. Soon, Victor and Anna approach, their clothes stained with blood. She wonders aloud what happened to them. Victor explains that the demonic beast kept coming one after another, and the hunt turned out to be surprisingly satisfying. Anna admits she has never enjoyed hunting this much before, not even on a battlefield. Kylo then asks if they found the source of the contamination. Anna nods and explains that the surviving demonic beasts had gathered the remains of their fallen kin, built an altar, and were performing some sort of resurrection ritual. Blood had flowed from the site in huge amounts. The commander commends their efforts and says they should finish collecting the landmines from the village before heading back. The Black Knights do not realize that the landmines they collected will later be stolen. The princess allows a small, secretive smile to tug at her lips. She thinks to herself that maybe she will get trapped with Kylo like this again someday. The villagers bow deeply and bless the Black Knights as they make their way back, their gratitude warm and heartfelt. After some time, they arrive at the Imperial Palace, where the scene seems busier than usual. The White Knights have just returned as well, and Kylo raises an eyebrow at the sight. He wonders why they're using carriages when they were assigned so close to the capital. Such an unnecessary display. Inside, the Empire's Saintess, Liliana, notices Kylo immediately. She freezes for a moment, recognizing him, and notes the terrifying intensity of his expression. Hugo, ever cautious, asks if she is all right. She nods, admitting that Kylo's severe look startled her. After all, she is used only to kind and gentle knights. Meanwhile, Princess Agnes observes quietly, thinking that Liliana's discomfort comes simply from Kylo refusing to bow before her. She doesn't dislike Liliana. In fact, she finds her obvious attempts at duplicity oddly charming. Liliana turns to acknowledge Agnes and immediately questions if the princess is also returning from a mission. Agnes, calm and composed, asks if she has been granted permission to speak. Liliana bows quickly, pleading for pardon. Agnes, in her measured tone, reminds her of imperial law. Those of lower status must never first address those of higher rank. She notes with just a hint of amusement that Liliana has yet to master even such a basic rule. Liliana bows again, explaining that the Emperor had decreed that while the princess wears the knight's attire, she should be treated simply as another member of the Black Knights. The princess notes that it's a permission granted to Kylo alone. Then she questions sharply if she is attempting to twist His Majesty's order and disgrace the imperial family's honor. Liliana shakes her head calmly, insisting that this is not her intention. She then notes that Liliana's ignorance of even the simplest imperial law reflects poorly on how incompetent her commander must be. Raymond, caught in the middle, stares in shock but remains silent, unwilling and unable to respond. Agnes walks past them without further comment. Nearby, a few members of the White Knights whisper among themselves, acknowledging that Liliana made a mistake, but feeling it would be excessive to pin the blame on Lord Raymond. Raymond, however, cannot help but consider this act as retaliation for refusing Liliana's heart. He suspects she's trying to ruin his reputation and fuel the rumors of his alleged abuse. The look on her face feels suffocating, and he clenches his fists as he watches her pass. Soon, Agnes reports her safe return to the Emperor after completing her mission. Afterward, she finds herself unable to leave the princess's palace for some time due to the Emperor's overprotectiveness. While she was away, even her maids had left for vacation at their family's estates, leaving her without familiar support. As a result, the full response to the Black Knight's efforts and the incident at the front gates on the day of her return does not reach her until several days later. Her maids approach, curious about the mission. Agnes first asks after Daisy, and they inform her that she will return next week. They then bring up the incident, affirming that any mistakes by subordinates were ultimately the result of their superior's negligence. Chloe, observing her carefully, asks if she is all right, noting that it is her first time seeing Raymond since that day. The princess's lips tighten slightly as she responds. How could she be all right? Every time she looks at him, it feels as if a knife pierces her heart. Yet, she tells herself that she cannot keep acting like a heartbroken woman forever. She quickly adds that she does not want to talk about him further. Emma, shifting the conversation, reveals that she recently attended a social event in Region SP3 and overheard astonishing stories about the princess's exploits. Agnes, with a single wave of her hand, had purified all the rivers and mountains in the region and healed hundreds of sick villagers. Chloe's eyes widen, her voice filled with awe as she remarks how incredible the princess truly is. Even she can hardly believe the tales she has just heard. The villagers, once unfriendly against the Black Knights, have received an enormous amount of help from them. To make up for their past distrust, they spread stories of heroism, some exaggerated, some bordering on the impossible. Rumors travel quickly, and one catches everyone off guard. The princess has supposedly cut ties with Raymond. The man most shaken by this news is Duke Spencer, Raymond's father. He paces anxiously, questioning what his son could have said to the princess to spark such rumors. He mutters that they will regret this later and reminds himself that Raymond should be grateful. The highest woman in the empire desires him. He even muses that it would be nice if his son and the princess actually got along. Raymond interrupts him, telling his father firmly that it is enough. Duke Spencer recalls the moment his son declared that he has made himself perfectly clear. He will marry the princess. His advisor quietly remarks that no one can predict the future. Duke Spencer's mind drifts back to his own past. He lost his first love because he had been blinded by familiarity in his youth. He married Raymond's mother, who resembled that lost love, and she spent her entire life trying to win his heart. Now, the daughter of the woman his father longed for, Agnes, stands before him. As a child, she was willful, unruly, and always causing trouble. Yet she clung to Raymond, expressing her affection in ways that were mischievous but endearing, almost like having a little sister. Everything seemed fine until that one day. Agnes had made a childish promise. Whenever it rains, frog fairies would appear in a certain pond, and they would come back to see them. It was a silly, playful vow, made for fun. But when the day came, Raymond gave an excuse. There had been no news of his mother's safe arrival from the estate, and with demonic beasts more powerful in rainy weather, he asked to postpone the plan. Agnes, stubborn as ever, threatened severe punishment if the promise wasn't kept. Later that night, Raymond received devastating news. He knew Agnes wasn't to blame for his mother's death, but he couldn't shake the thought that if he had stayed home, he might have been there in her final moments. His mother had suffered in life, and now her last moments were alone. He could hardly bear to think about it. Agnes, the little girl whose willfulness indirectly caused this tragedy, became impossible for him to look at. Even when he ignored her, she never let him go. He remembered deliberately standing her up on a rainy day, hoping she would catch a cold and give him a brief reprieve. But she sent a cheerful letter instead, promising to play again once she recovered. She never stopped, tirelessly summoning him to the imperial palace. Raymond realized with certainty that Agnes would never give up on him. Her longing for him was unyielding. Meanwhile, Daisy Rodion arrives at the princess's palace, her expression bright. She admits how much she missed the princess and asks if the feeling is mutual. Agnes smiles and confirms that she missed her as well. Daisy peeks at what the princess is working on. Agnes explains it's an effective pixels device. Daisy thinks to herself that she didn't get a single chance to capture a photo during their last mission because Agnes had been so busy purifying everything. With this new tool, she can automatically capture every angle of Kylo's impressive physique. She's thrilled at the thought. But then she remembers Kylo left immediately after they returned. Daisy wonders where he ran off to when there's no mission left. She finds herself missing him. As Kylo gazes at the building before him, memories creep into his mind. He recalls a cruel voice saying he should never have been born, blaming him for the hardships in their lives and cursing him for it. He remembers the times his half-siblings mistreated him, insisting that the maid's son should be grateful just to be allowed to live under their roof. Even his father had doubted his mother's faithfulness, claiming she must have been with other men because Kylo looks nothing like him, and is now trying to pin the pregnancy on him, blaming him for everything that went wrong. Despite all these bitter memories, Kylo walks in with measured calm. His father greets him, calling him son, and Kylo responds simply that it was his father who summoned him. His expression remains unreadable, masking all the bitter memories and feelings that have followed him for years. Kylo's father, Viscount Austen Grey, a stern and imposing court noble, remarks that it seems ages since he last saw his son. He gestures for Kylo to sit, noting the passage of time. Kylo observes his father with a sense of distaste, though he greets him politely and remarks that he's been well. 27 years ago, Kylo's mother, the most beautiful woman in her village, had traveled from the countryside to the capital, dreaming of becoming the mistress of a nobleman. She caught the eye of Viscount Austen Grey and bore him a son, Kylo. But instead of bringing happiness, it became the greatest misfortune of her life. The Viscount immediately insisted that the child was not his, since the boy's hair was a different color. The betrayal, combined with constant torment from the Viscountess, left Kylo's mother irritable and harsh. She vented her anger on the only one she could, Kylo, her own son. Just as he was learning to endure abuse from his mother, the Viscountess, and his half-brothers, tragedy struck. His mother was caught attempting to kill the Viscountess and was beaten to death. That day, Kylo fled the Grey household, determined to survive at all costs. Life on the streets was brutal. He was stabbed while stealing, nearly beaten beyond life, and constantly turned away from work without pay. Eventually, a mercenary took pity on him and offered him a position as a servant. Kylo accepted and resolved to become a mercenary himself, taking any job he could survive on as tenacious as a tick. Through skill and perseverance, Kylo earned renown as a mercenary and eventually joined the Black Knights. Only then did his father summon him under the pretense of repairing ties with the Imperial family. Despite being an illegitimate child, Kylo understood that noble blood could still help him advance. He decided to kneel when necessary, serve quietly, and bide his time. Yet he swore to seek revenge on all who had made his life miserable if power ever fell into his hands. In the present, Viscount Grey asks how Kylo has been, and notes that he heard the princess is now one of his subordinates. He assumes Kylo has ingratiated himself to her for the sake of the family. Kylo confirms this. His father then announces that his sons, Benjamin and Bradley, will soon visit the knights and should be introduced to the princess. Kylo can hardly believe what he's hearing. His father continues, instructing the boys to dress appropriately and acquire new clothes for the occasion. Kylo questions the purpose of this, but his father dismisses it, insisting Kylo obeys. He warns Kylo not to betray the generosity of letting an illegitimate child carry the family name. Kylo knows patience is required. It is not yet time to rebel. Kylo's younger sister protests, asking if she can meet the princess too. Their mother tells her to be quiet, but she insists, hoping at least to attend a tea party. Their father complains that social parties have begun without her, and mentions that Madame Ross arranged for him to attend Marchioness Melville's party soon. He stresses that the family cannot let the opportunity pass, especially with one of his sons potentially becoming the Emperor's son-in-law. Kylo is shocked, recalling that the princess herself had summoned him. He struggles to comprehend what his father just revealed, and after confirming, learns that the princess has already attended 2 high society events. Meanwhile, back at the Princess Palace, her maids praise her appearance, noting how well she carries herself. The princess reflects that her reputation has improved in the capital recently, and she decides it's time to focus on socializing again. The upcoming event is a charity party hosted by Marchioness Melville, which she specifically chose because it emphasizes diligence and goodwill, perfect for projecting a noble and capable image. She plans to wear a cute outfit, reminiscent of a young debutante making her first impression in society. However, she struggles to find a suitable donation, realizing that jewelry is her only option, and it risks reinforcing her extravagant image. As preparations continue, she instructs her maid to send word to the Crown Prince's palace, informing them she's on her way. She can't help but think mischievously about raiding her brother's wallet for the evening. Kylo is having breakfast with his family. His father watches him closely and asks if the food isn't to his taste. Kylo replies that it's fine. His father then instructs his wife to have the chef prepare Kylo's favorite dishes from now on, and she agrees without complaint. While eating, Kylo reflects on his reaction earlier, when the princess was speaking to Liliana. He realizes why he felt that way. After a lifetime of humiliation and being belittled, having someone like her stand by his side, even briefly, made him feel genuinely happy. In that moment, he could have mistaken her for an angel. The thought that his own family might ever imagine being with her feels appalling to him. Yet, he can see how someone like Raymond, who seems perfect in every way, would fit effortlessly into that ideal noble picture. Something Kylo feels he could never even hope to approach. He feels a surge of sympathy for the princess, angry at anyone in his household who dares speak unkindly of her. But he convinces himself that was all it was. Nothing more. Meanwhile, the princess is in her brother's office. As she flips through some books, she notices that he keeps them there purely to appear smart. Soon, her brother notices her and asks what she's doing there. She reminds him that he recently barged into her quarters without permission, and wonders if he expects her to simply remain quiet this time. He tells her that she's rummaging around in his office, where he handles state matters, so he has to be protective. She explains that she's there to ask for advice, which he doubts at first. She confirms it and says she is attending Marchioness Melville's charity event, but doesn't have anything suitable to donate. He raises an eyebrow, asking about the mountains of jewelry she owns. She responds that it's not appropriate. He can hardly believe that the girl who would stop crying as a child when given a jewel is now saying this. Before she can elaborate, he interrupts, offering her the first edition of Grandel's poetry, a renowned poet from 100 years ago. He explains that for a noblewoman with refined taste, nothing is more desirable than this, and reassures her that associating with Marchioness Melville is an excellent choice. She thanks him, amused, thinking that even though he gave her something useful, he's such an old fogey. Her brother adds that Raymond Spencer will surely be impressed as well. Her expression shifts slightly at this news. He then suggests she sit for tea. telling her that a guest is arriving whom she will be glad to see. She's eager to leave, but someone informs the prince that Raymond has arrived. He instructs them to let him in. The princess insists she's busy and will take her leave. The prince calls her a shy little kiddo, but she corrects him, saying she is not. As she opens the door, she sees Raymond. They stare at each other silently for a moment before she finally departs. The prince observes and wonders if Agnes is upset with him. Raymond remains silent. The prince calls to him, and he responds that he is listening. He questions whether Raymond truly dislikes his sister so much. He feels an urge to admit that he does, but restrains himself for some unknown reason. The prince reflects on the princess's simple and natural appearance, so different from the usual noblewomen. He notices the faintly wounded expression on her face, as if she has spent her entire life gazing only at their father's back. For a fleeting moment, he sees the same expression that their mother once wore, and the two seem to overlap. The prince quietly promises himself that he will live a completely different life from his father. Yet, despite his resolve, an uneasy feeling settles in him, as if he might one day break that vow. Marquis Melville has 2 sons. One is his successor, a well-known womanizer and member of the White Knights, Sirius Melville. The other is his illegitimate son, Rubius Melville, a member of the Black Knights who is currently away on a mission. When the Marquis registered Rubius as his younger brother's adopted son, it caused a serious rift between him and his wife. After that, Marchioness Melville sent her husband to manage the country estate while she took full control of the family's real power in the capital. When the princess sees the Marchioness, she greets her politely and thanks her for the invitation. The Marchioness responds that it is an honor to welcome her to her humble home. The princess comes alone without a maid and bows formally. Everyone presents remarks on how mature and composed she appears. Though such reactions have become more common recently, she knows that erasing memories of her past mistakes will take extra effort, especially with people who clearly want to test her, like the Marchioness. The Marchioness comments that she worries the princess might not enjoy herself, since it is mostly a gathering of older ladies. Madame Norris whispers that the Marchioness's hair reminds her of her own daughter when she debuted in high society. Someone else warns her that it might sound like she is comparing the princess, and Norris quickly apologizes. Until now, Agnes has played the role of a mature and elegant princess, but in a setting full of middle-aged women, she decides to take a lighter approach. She remembers that young ladies who recently debuted in high society often have their mothers braid yellow ribbons into their hair. She has always wanted to try that style herself, and calls it the super cute youngest daughter strategy. The princess notes that being among all these older women feels like being with her own mother, and she finds it surprisingly comfortable and enjoyable. The ladies express their admiration, saying the royal family's 2 treasures have grown up splendidly and the late empress would have been delighted. They also praise the book she presented. Agnes realizes that answering politely and smiling warmly works best in front of mothers. Soon, Mrs. Grey arrives, and her daughter immediately notices Princess Agnes. Someone remarks that they are late, while another asks who they are. The question is quietly answered. The princess notices that the red-haired woman is Kylo's stepmother. Madame Ross quickly apologizes for their lateness, explaining that a carriage accident had delayed them. The maids ask whom she came with, and she replies that it is her close friend, Viscountess Grey. She bows politely to greet both the Marchioness and the princess. Agnes thinks to herself that the original story doesn't go into detail about House Grey, but she knows how cruelly they treated Kylo in the past. Soon, the Viscountess begins to speak, trying to explain to the princess that Kylo is her stepson. Agnes is shocked that this woman dares to mention Kylo's name so shamelessly. The Viscountess continues, saying that Kylo will formally introduce his sons to the princess and start speaking highly of her 2 older sons. The princess, curious, asks about Kylo. The Viscountess is taken aback, questioning why the princess suddenly wants to know about him. Agnes calmly explains that she recently realized how many misconceptions she had about Kylo. She admits, with some shame, that her narrow-mindedness led her to make mistakes in judgment. Yet Kylo had always treated her fairly and without bias. Observing him fulfill his duties diligently as a commander has taught her many lessons. That's why she is so curious to know what he was like growing up in the Grey household. Other women present comment on how remarkable Kylo is, wondering if he is the reason the princess has matured so much. The Viscountess, feeling defensive, complains that it's unfair to speak in his favor. She then spills that Kylo is the result of her husband's infidelity and claims that he tormented her children from a young age, even stealing from them. She adds that the Marchioness should understand exactly how she feels, since Marquis Melville also registered his illegitimate child into her family. She continues cursing illegitimate children. The Marchioness, unable to tolerate the accusations any longer, stands up and orders the woman and her companions to leave immediately. She calls the butler to escort Madame Ross, the Viscountess, and her daughter out of the room. The event ends on a tense and unpleasant note. Agnes knows that some social rivals will likely hear about this and have a good laugh at the Marchioness's expense. Shortly after, someone brings a letter to the Marchioness, who had requested to be alone. She discovers that the letter is from the princess, accompanied by a yellow rose and the ribbon from the princess's hair. In the language of flowers, a yellow rose symbolizes unchanging love. The letter expresses that the princess was deeply moved by the Marchioness's garden and explains that it is tradition for unmarried young women who have just debuted to gift a yellow rose and their hair ribbon to the mother who raised them. The princess adds that she accepts the gift in gratitude for her hard work and thanks her sincerely for the invitation. The Marchioness is deeply touched. She had long suffered in silence after learning her husband's betrayal and the registration of his illegitimate child as a nephew. Despite the hardship, she could not abandon the home she built, the reputation she maintained, or the son she loved. She had never shown her pain, nor received consolation, because no one knew she needed it. For the first time, this simple gesture, a letter, a yellow rose, and a hair ribbon brings her genuine comfort. On the carriage ride back to her palace, the princess still cannot believe how boldly the Viscountess tried to interfere with Kylo. She is certain that some people might believe the woman's lies and twisted words. Determined to protect him, she warns that anyone who spreads what happened at the event will be found and punished severely. When the carriage arrives at the palace, she realizes she has successfully gained the favor of a major socialite, Marchioness Melville. That alone seems to lift a huge weight from her shoulders, as many of her social reputation worries can now be put aside. Her maids rush forward eagerly to greet her. She raises an eyebrow at their sudden appearance and asks why they have all come at once. They explain that they simply wanted to welcome her back. Silently, she notes that their eagerness almost screams of ulterior motives. Emma quickly asks if the princess has heard the latest news. The Crown Prince has chosen Lady Diana Lennox as his partner for the upcoming Founding Festival Ball. The princess is surprised and thoughtful. Emma continues, questioning who her own partner would be, and the princess begins to consider her options carefully. Later, she visits Kylo in his office. He looks up and asks what brings her here. For a moment, she imagines wrapping her arms around him and telling him how much she has missed him. But instead, she explains that she is curious about her next mission. Glancing at the schedule, she notices that she has been excluded from all upcoming missions. Kylo admits that she will not be assigned any missions for now, explaining that it is because of the Founding Festival. She thinks to herself that she would rather spend time with him than attend a ball, and being a princess often gets in the way at times like this. She then asks if he will attend the festival. In the original story, Kylo never goes to the ball, so she had planned to attend with her brother. But since he is going with a childhood friend, she hopes she can pitch the idea to Kylo instead. He stays silent for a moment, then says he isn't sure what she is getting at. Slowly, it clicks in her mind. The reason he has never attended the ball. She recalls a line from the original story in which Princess Agnes banned commoners and illegitimate children from attending, calling them vulgar. Kylo, with a hint of sharpness, replies that he will gladly attend if she needs some vulgar, illegitimate child in the ballroom to mock. She quickly reassures him that this is not what she means. Curious about her future missions, she asks if she can resume them once the festival ends. Kylo answers positively. She then asks if he could accompany her on all future missions. He seems surprised and takes a moment to think, then affirms that he can. Finally, he politely tells her that if that is everything, he would appreciate it if she takes her leave. As she leaves, she wonders if she has bothered him by bringing up the ball. She admits quietly to herself that she probably ruined his mood, but she also notes that their closeness is growing, even if slowly. She cannot help but wonder when they will finally be truly close, without any barriers between them. Meanwhile, Kylo sits alone, thinking about his father's words, about sending his other sons to visit him and his supposed duty to introduce them to the princess. Frustrated, he punches the window to relieve some of his stress, the glass shivering under his fist. On her way back, the princess considers what to do. She recalls the novel, how she had once dragged Raymond along, begging him to dance with her, only to run off later while Hazel and Liliana engaged in a petty contest over him. She does not want to think about going with Raymond again. Yet going alone risks undoing all the reputation she has worked so hard to build, and she knows that most decent men are already taken. Back at the palace, she is still mulling over her dilemma when Sirius Melville, who is sitting nearby, suddenly asks if she would grant him the honor of escorting her to the festival ball. Surprised, she wonders why he is asking. Sirius has always been a notorious womanizer, but he has never openly flirted with her, and he usually keeps to himself. She frowns slightly, curious about what has prompted this unusual behavior. Looking at her carefully, Sirius explains that he heard she had comforted his mother during a difficult moment at the charity event and had even taken steps to ensure that rumors did not spread. He wants to repay that kindness by being her partner for the festival. The princess thinks to herself that the Marchioness must have badgered him until he came here, but she admits quietly that the idea sounds pleasant enough. Sirius asks what color dress she plans to wear. She replies that she intends to wear a lavender dress, the same color as her eyes. He studies her face for a long moment, noting just how striking her eyes are, and wondering if they have always been that pretty. Earlier, having been hounded by his mother, Sirius had arrived at the princess's palace in a sour mood. He admits to himself that while she may be beautiful, her flashy appearance has never really been his style. He also assumed she would still be hung up on Raymond and would reject him outright. But something about her presence today feels different. Calm, confident, and genuine in a way he hasn't seen before. Slowly, he realizes that perhaps it will not be so bad after all. Having secured an unexpected partner, the days pass quickly until finally, the long-awaited day of the founding festival arrives. At the Gray family home, the two older brothers prepare eagerly for the festival. Benjamin remarks that they have always admired the princess from afar, but today is different. Today, they finally get to make use of Kylo Gray, and one of them might even become the husband of the most beautiful woman in the Empire. Soon, the brothers begin to argue over who would win the princess's favor. Nearby, their mother listens quietly. Her thoughts drift back to the incident at the Marchioness's charity event. If the story of her being thrown out had spread, she knows she would have been cast out of high society, and her husband might even have divorced her. But more than that, something continues to trouble her. She wonders whether Kylo will truly introduce the princess to them willingly. One of her sons notices her unease and asks why she seems worried. She admits that Kylo might disappoint them. However, the brothers brush this aside, thinking he is probably busy on a mission. They return to their petty argument about who would charm the princess more. Meanwhile, at the grand ballroom, the princess arrives with Sirius. The crowd takes notice as they are formally introduced. Kylo's stepbrothers, who are present, grow annoyed when they realize Kylo himself is nowhere to be seen. Soon, Sirius leads the princess into a dance. The guests whisper among themselves. Some admire her gown, others gossip about Sirius and his reputation as a shameless flirt. Many had expected the princess to attend alone, but they soon agree that the two make a striking pair. Sirius, enjoying the attention, feels pleased to be one of the evening's main figures. Still, he wonders if the princess has truly moved on from Raymond. His curiosity deepens when he spots Raymond across the hall, accompanied by Hazel Devon. Sirius greets him with a smile, but Raymond's distant look surprises him. At that moment, Sirius realizes that Raymond does not want the princess and likely never intends to. He reflects that many men in the Empire, himself included, have felt inferior to Raymond at some point. But while Raymond may be exceptional, Sirius believes that does not make him good. A man should know how to make a woman happy. He thinks that if he had been in Raymond's place, he would never have treated someone who loved him with such coldness. Perhaps, by now, he might have been happily married with a peaceful family life. Meanwhile, as the music plays, the princess's thoughts drift elsewhere. What fills her mind is not the dance nor the crowd, but the fact that she misses Kylo. After the dance ends, her maid praises her beauty and notes that Sirius could hardly take his eyes off her. Daisy then suggests that the princess should dance with her brother, Hugo, hoping it might make him forget Liliana. The other maids quickly scold Daisy for such a remark. Daisy explains that Hugo is completely devoted to Liliana, and she only wishes someone could break that hold over him. Soon, Chloe gently warns the princess not to drink too much. The princess reflects that she has caused trouble before when drunk, but tonight, she simply feels bored. She wonders how she is meant to enjoy the evening. Then she notices Hazel and Liliana facing off. The tension between them catches her interest immediately. Sensing that something is about to unfold, she decides to slip away quietly, to follow them, and watch. Sirius returns moments later after greeting fellow knights, only to find her missing. When the maids explain where she has gone, he assumes that seeing Raymond must have unsettled her. He regrets leaving her alone. A short while earlier, Liliana confronts Hazel in a quiet area. She questions where Hazel is going and suggests they settle their issues here and now. Hazel warns her not to cross the line, saying she too has her limits. Hidden nearby, the princess listens carefully, knowing Hazel will not hold back. Liliana accuses Hazel of interfering, claiming Raymond was meant to be her partner and that Hazel stole him out of jealousy. She even mocks Hazel, asking if she envies her beauty and the attention she receives. The princess watches with growing fascination, finding the unfolding love triangle strangely entertaining. Just then, Sirius approaches and calls out to her, but she quickly stops him from speaking. Sirius has never been held back by a woman who is smaller and younger than him before. He feels shocked and keeps wondering why this affects him so much. After thinking about it, he begins to feel that maybe the reason he has never settled down is because he has been waiting for someone like her. They look at each other for a moment. Soon, the princess turns away so she can continue watching the girls, but she notices that they are already leaving. She becomes curious about where they are going. She tells Sirius not to follow her and to quietly return to the ballroom. He agrees without protest. As she leaves, she wonders if his voice sounded strangely charming or if she is only imagining it. She quickly heads in the direction the girls went. While she searches for them, Hazel notices her. Hazel reveals that she had sensed someone listening earlier and now realizes it was the princess. Agnes admits that she could not ignore such an interesting situation. Hazel asks if she enjoyed it, and Agnes replies that she sadly did not hear everything. Agnes knows Hazel has a strong will, but she cannot help wondering if the gentle-looking woman has always been this cold. She then asks about Liliana. Hazel explains that Liliana ran away crying earlier and is likely with her fan club now. Hazel then asks if Agnes has truly given up on Raymond. Agnes confirms that she has grown tired of being hurt and tells Hazel never to speak to her about him again. Hazel says this is a wise choice because Raymond truly hates her. Agnes finds this hard to believe and wonders if Hazel is simply releasing her anger from her fight with Liliana. Instead of arguing, she chooses to walk away. As she walks, she begins to feel dizzy and wonders if she drank too much earlier. Soon she hears her maids calling as they search for her. She realizes she has been gone for too long but still does not want to return to the ballroom. While thinking about the party, she remembers how everyone is cheering for her, yet Kylo is still absent. He is the reason she came into this world and has continued living according to the story until now. Everything she has done is for him. Without him, the ball feels meaningless. Others may point at him and call him greedy for power, but she knows the truth. He is only deeply lonely and longs for someone to accept him. That is why she believes she must stay by his side. She quietly says his name and decides that she is going to him. Meanwhile, in the banquet hall, the crown prince notices Sirius standing alone and tells Diana that this is the first time he has seen Sirius at a party without a woman beside him. He wonders if something is wrong or if Sirius is finally ready to settle down. He remembers seeing Sirius with Agnes earlier. As he is still thinking, Raymond approaches them. When asked what is on his mind, the crown prince reveals that he is considering Lord Sirius Melville as a possible husband for Agnes. Raymond and Diana are both shocked. The commander asks for confirmation of the crown prince's thoughts. The crown prince calmly explains that Sirius is actually the ideal husband, despite his reputation as a womanizer. He then wonders aloud if something must have happened between Sirius and Agnes for them to appear together as partners. Raymond questions this reasoning and asks what exactly happened between the crown prince and Diana that led to their own partnership. The crown prince replies that their situation is completely different. Agnes and Sirius no longer belong to the same Night Order, and they were never especially close in the past. He continues by saying that people often find themselves drawn to someone who is completely different from their former partner after a breakup. In his opinion, if Agnes and Sirius were to truly end up together, Sirius's past behavior with women would no longer matter. He believes no woman would dare approach a man who belongs to the imperial princess. Because of this, he sees no harm in considering the possibility. Raymond's expression grows dark. He quietly leaves the hall in search of fresh air. His mind feels restless and confused. The thought of Agnes holding another man's hand refuses to leave him. He becomes frustrated with himself, wondering why he is feeling something so immature. He begins to think about the dreams that have been troubling him lately. In those dreams, a younger Agnes runs after him while his mother cries in sorrow because of his father. The images of both women seem to overlap in his mind, and this only deepens his irritation. Elsewhere, Kylo continues his training. He pauses and reflects on a time when he once imagined that he might attend a grand ball like this. However, he soon recalls the princess's harsh words about illegitimate children being too vulgar to attend such events. He accepts that perhaps she was right. Fighting is the only thing he knows, and he believes he would only embarrass himself at such a gathering. As he resumes his thoughts, he notices the princess in the distance. He finds it strange that she looks unhappy at an event she supposedly loves so much. He cannot understand why she defended him during her confrontation with Liliana after returning from their mission. He also remembers how she once said that looking at him made her eyes hurt, yet she still offered him her hand. Her actions continue to confuse him. In his mind, she is the noble imperial princess, while he is nothing more than a tool raised by the palace. He knows that if the emperor ever withdraws his command, he will lose even the chance to be near her. Suddenly, he hears a sound and turns to see someone approaching. And when he realizes it is the princess, he is shocked by her presence. She appears unsteady, and he quickly drops his sword to catch her before she falls. He becomes concerned that his sweat might offend her, and he notices that she seems affected by alcohol. He apologizes as she raises her hand toward him. He assumes she intends to strike him and believes he deserves it for touching her with his unclean hands. Instead of pushing him away, she gently pulls his face closer and kisses him. Kylo is completely shocked. After a moment, she lets go and leans weakly on his shoulder. He assumes that she must have mistaken him for Raymond. The next morning, the princess wakes up in her room feeling confused. She wonders how she even made it back to her chamber the previous night. She clearly remembers drinking and deciding to look for Kylo, but everything that happens after she sees him at the training ground is blank in her mind. She rings the bell, and the Lord Chamberlain enters. The lady politely asks how she may assist her for the day. The princess admits that she does need help and asks how she returned to her palace the night before. The Chamberlain explains that Kylo brought her back after finding her passed out near the knight's quarters. Curious, the princess asks how he carried her. The lady answers that he carried her in his arms. After the founding festival, she notices a small but clear change in Kylo's behavior. He begins to avoid her completely. She finds this strange because he never avoided her in the past, even when she openly disliked him. Now she starts to worry that she may have done something embarrassing at the ball. She wonders if she touched him improperly or said something strange while drunk. Soon after, she notices one of her drones. Although there are security drones around the palace, this particular one is something she personally created. She told the captain of the guard that it was meant for monitoring training sessions, so she is only allowed to record public areas. As she checks the record footage, she sees Kylo training without his shirt. She's instantly amazed and thinks his beauty is so striking that it should be carved into stone and preserved as a national treasure for future generations. However, she quickly realizes that at this rate, she is starting to resemble an obsessed fan rather than a dignified princess. Still, she convinces herself that hardship is part of loving something deeply. Since an even more important day than the founding festival is coming soon, she refuses to give up. Meanwhile, on the streets, Benjamin asks why someone took so long to arrive. The person apologizes and explains that the gambling den does not open until night anyway, so being late does not matter. Then they mention something unusual they noticed on the way and ask if it might be related to House Grey. Benjamin is confused about what his family could have possibly done. The man points toward an electronic billboard in the center of the capital. Normally, such billboards are used by successful businessmen or famous artists to promote themselves. Having an advertisement there is considered a sign of status and success, almost like being honored publicly. But today, the billboard displays something unexpected. A birthday message for Kylo. Benjamin becomes furious upon seeing it. Even a well-known cafe nearby is displaying the same birthday tribute. Seeing Kylo honored in a place he has always dreamed of reaching fills him with anger. He begins to wonder who arranged all of this and immediately cancels their plans for the day. This moment fulfills a longtime dream of the princess. She has always wanted to become rich enough to show the entire world Kylo's true value. Now, disguised in simple clothes, she walks through the streets and takes a picture of herself in front of the birthday banner. As she looks at it, she feels satisfied and quietly concludes that dreams really can come true. Back in her palace, the princess sits quietly, scrolling through the photos she took earlier. Each image brings a small smile to her lips. In the original story, Kylo's birthday had passed almost unnoticed. He only realized it by chance after returning from a mission, spotting the date on a calendar. The battlefield had swallowed the day, leaving it empty, unremarkable. But today is different. Today, the world celebrated him. The cafe is filled with warmth, laughter, and people talking about him. Every bit of money she spent, every little effort to make the day special, feels completely worth it. More than anything, she knows Kylo just wants to be loved, to be seen. She hopes that seeing this celebration will make him smile, make his heart feel lighter, even if just for a little while. Later, she makes her way to the Black Knight's quarters to check on him. Anna, always alert, tells her that Kylo has left for an urgent subjugation mission. It's a minor demonic beast. He insists on handling it alone. The princess bows quickly, pressing her forehead to the floor in frustration. He's the only one who didn't get to see the billboard, she thinks, gritting her teeth. Nothing ever goes her way. The path of a dedicated fan, she muses, is full of thorns, but she's determined. She can handle it. She must. Meanwhile, at the Grey family estate, tension simmers. The Viscountess notices the whispers spreading through high society. Someone is clearly trying to humiliate her, and the thought makes her uneasy as she wonders if her husband is aware. They say Viscount Grey placed a birthday advertisement for his illegitimate son, just to remind the world of his existence, to put her in her place. The Viscount dismisses it as baseless gossip, questioning how anyone could afford such a lavish display and whether his wife might suspect the culprit. The Viscountess points to Marchioness Melville, holding a grudge since the charity event. Benjamin, their son, steps in. He adds that maybe it's Kylo's doing. He had promised to introduce them to the princess, yet not a word has come from him. Clearly, someone is trying to embarrass the Grey family. Only Kylo could pull something like this. They agree. But even if he spent every coin earned as a mercenary, there's no way he could afford the full advertisement. Maybe he borrowed money, using his family name while his father's recent kindness allowed it. Still, the Viscount curses him quietly. He wants to visit the Imperial Palace and deal with Kylo personally. Back at the palace, the Crown Prince suddenly summons the princess. She frowns, curious if he's interrupting her precious fangirl time. Her escort, a white knight named Joshua Cromwell, follows closely. Joshua is a diehard Raymond fan and harbors a quiet dislike for the princess. He blames her for bothering Raymond. She can practically feel his scowl as they walk. Suddenly, she spots Raymond approaching the crown prince's quarters. Instantly, she hides behind Joshua, heart thumping. She understands immediately. Her brother called for her because he wants her to face Raymond. But she hesitates. Joshua tries to explain, but she insists she cannot meet him now. Doing so would only fuel more gossip, more stands whispering about her and Raymond. She tells Joshua to relay the message and she slips away, avoiding the encounter. Joshua watches her, realization dawning. He now understands that she didn't hide just to spark jealousy or attention. She is genuinely cautious, even a little afraid. The rumors about her giving up on Raymond are true, and she wants nothing more than to avoid fueling them further. Shortly after, Joshua steps inside to report to the crown prince. The prince inquires about Agnes. Joshua explains that a pressing matter came up and that she will be contacted later. The crown prince had hoped to see her interact with Raymond to confirm whether she had truly moved on, but that plan is delayed. Instead, his attention shifts to Raymond, who brings forward a document. A detailed list of every woman Sirius Melville has ever been involved with. The crown prince raises an eyebrow, impressed and slightly shocked. He knew Sirius was a womanizer, but not to this extent. He wonders whether Diana Lennox, his own engagement prospect, appears on the list. Turning to Raymond, he questions whether he still believes Sirius could be a suitable husband for Agnes. Raymond responds clearly. Sirius may charm any woman, but he is dangerous, unreliable, and far from the man suitable for a princess. The prince nods in agreement, acknowledging the difficulty of finding a man as dependable as Raymond himself. Yet, he cannot resist teasing. He asks if Raymond's dislike for Princess Agnes has changed. Does he still hold the same feelings? Damien casually corners Raymond with a question about his sister, but Raymond stays silent, refusing to engage. Damien just smiles it off, acting like he doesn't care, but makes it clear he will keep watching Sirius Melville a little longer before dismissing him. Raymond gives a polite thanks and turns to leave, but Damien suddenly calls after him, dropping a strange suggestion about stopping by Agnes's place tomorrow, since she may soon be sent far away under royal orders. Raymond is caught off guard and asks why all of this is happening so suddenly, while Damien keeps that calm smile, basically hinting that Raymond's sudden interest in rushing Agnes's engagement is what's really driving things. In the end, Raymond reluctantly agrees, bowing before walking off. I feel like he's playing chess while everyone else is still setting up the board, but the moment Raymond is gone, Damien completely drops the act and starts laughing to himself, clearly entertained by how everything is unfolding. He muses that Raymond doesn't actually seem to hate Agnes, and with her status and intelligence, she would make the perfect bride if things go his way. He even notes how her personality shifted after being ignored by Raymond, and how smoothly his little plan is working. Meanwhile, Agnes is being told to get ready to thank her brother, but she already senses how ridiculous everything feels around her. Elsewhere, Court Viscount is getting frustrated as he's told Lord Grey has already left on a mission, despite his insisting otherwise and demanding they search again. His sons only add to the chaos, casually suggesting they go see the princess and arguing about trivial things, which makes him snap at them in anger before realizing something feels off. In his mind, he starts suspecting Kyle has already moved ahead and possibly set things up to avoid them entirely, leaving him uneasy about what is really going on behind the scenes. Kyle is spiraling alone with his thoughts, and it's not pretty. He feels like he's been treated as nothing more than a replacement for Raymond, and that bitterness starts eating at him from the inside. But what really messes with him is the fear creeping in. What if the princess remembers what happened? What if people start questioning him about that day? His mind just keeps running wild, dragging him deeper into anxiety until he finally snaps himself out of it, trying to shake the feeling before it becomes something he can't control. And in that moment, he comes to a harsh realization. The princess was never meant to be part of his story. She's in love with Raymond, not him. Meanwhile, the chief of staff is firmly warning Agnes not to keep sneaking around the castle like this, but our girl just smiles like she's already one step ahead. The tension rises as he insists she should stop refusing escorts and behave properly, but Agnes suddenly grabs Chamberlain's hand instead, softening the moment. She tells her how much she depends on her, practically treating her like family since day one. Chamberlain is clearly torn by it, and Agnes pushes a little more, promising she'll be quick like last time. Eventually, Chamberlain gives in, just asking her to be back on time. Agnes agrees easily, though in her mind she's already thinking this whole escort idea makes no sense anyway. She's here for something important today, the birthday cafe plan, and she was determined to catch Raymond before everything kicked off, even if it means taking proof photos again later. But when she finally arrives, reality throws her off a bit. The place is already closed, and she can't help wondering if she came too early. The streets are crowded, chaotic even, with carriages blocking paths and people arguing over the roads. One frustrated man even confronts her for standing in the way, and she quickly realizes taking any proof photo here would just draw attention she doesn't want. So she decides to step away and explore the shopping area first before returning later. And just as she moves off, Raymond is already there too, quietly following her from the shadows without her noticing. Agnes is still wandering through the area, completely focused on her little mission, unaware that Raymond is quietly trailing her from behind. Meanwhile, Raymond watches her closely, his thoughts slowly unraveling. It's not like he hates Agnes anymore. It's more like there's regret sitting on his chest for the things he did in the past. Seeing her dressed like this, moving around so freely, he can't help questioning everything. He even went to the princess's place, thinking an apology might calm his mind. But instead, he ends up realizing just how reckless she's being, sneaking out of the palace like this without a care. And honestly, this isn't new. She's always been like this, wandering off like she's chasing something only she understands. He even recalls that time he found her asleep near the forest outside the imperial castle, looking so innocent it left him stunned, and yet he still got angry back then. Now he's wondering if he ever really understood her at all. Just then, Agnes's attention snaps to something in the distance. She lights up instantly and runs over, picking up a teddy bear like it's the most precious thing she's seen all day. And Raymond just watches her, almost softening at the sight. For a moment, he even thinks maybe things could have been different. Maybe they could have gone back to being close, like proper siblings again. But that thought doesn't even get to finish properly before everything flips in an instant. A carriage comes rushing straight toward Agnes, the driver shouting for people to move, but it's already too late. Chaos erupts as people scream, realizing someone has been hit, guessing the horse must have gone wild, panic spreading as blood appears on the ground. Raymond freezes for a second before snapping out of it and running toward her, refusing to accept what he's seeing, reaching out in shock while people around start recognizing him as Sir Spencer. And just like that, his mind drifts back to memories of a past death, like everything is about to repeat itself. Bro is completely losing it. He rushes over and pulls Agnes into his arms while crying and screaming her name. But wait, our girl isn't actually gone just yet. She wakes up, clutching her head in total confusion. The trauma of getting hit by a car in her past life hits her hard as she realizes she might be dying on the way to a birthday cafe for the second time. Just as she starts questioning her miserable luck, a familiar voice apologizes from the shadows. She looks up and realizes she is back in that same ethereal space with the goddess. Agnes doesn't hold back and demands to know how she managed to get killed twice. The deity actually seems stumped and claims this hasn't happened in billions of years. Agnes tells her to stop making excuses and send her back before her body starts rotting. Our girl knows exactly how this works. Since her reincarnation was a reward for her first death, she definitely deserves some serious compensation for round 2. She immediately tries to cut a deal to save Kyle, but the goddess shuts her down at every turn. Apparently, you can't change the future, and there is no such thing as a revival tool or human resurrection magic. The deity tells her to stop overthinking and just go back while she still can. But Agnes is way ahead of her. She realizes the goddess is reading her mind and digs through her memories of the original novel. She remembers a specific plot point about a mysterious pendant found by Raymond. Recalling all the theories she read in the comments of her previous life, she reaches out with total confidence. She stares the goddess down and demands the remains of the ancient rulers. Honestly, that is such a boss move. Our girl straight up demands that the goddess take responsibility for her life. Seeing she has no choice, the deity whips out some magic to grant the request, but gives a strict warning that there absolutely will not be a third time. As Agnes gets sent back, the goddess's servant shows up, questioning why she helped since this whole situation was not actually a divine mistake. But the goddess explains that the moment Agnes started messing with the plot, the gears of the world warped completely. If she does not fix it, the entire world is going to be destroyed. Honestly, that is a massive burden to dump on her. Meanwhile, back in the real world, everyone is gathered around Agnes's bed, sobbing. Her father, Emperor, is completely losing it while her maids, Emma and Chloe, beg her to open her eyes. Just as the goddess's voice echoes in her head saying this is for the best, she finally opens her eyes. Everyone is absolutely shocked, and her dad immediately cries tears of joy. Later on, the doctor checks her out and declares it a total miracle because her wounds are completely healed. As she processes the chaos, she glances down at her hand and notices she is actually holding the holy relic. Realizing her body was literally dead just moments ago, she knows things are about to get crazy. Emperor Damien gently pats Agnes's head and tells her to be careful. Our girl thinks he is being completely creepy and tries to swat his hand away, but she ultimately lets it slide. Her dad is so obsessed with giving her peace of mind that he suddenly bellows an order to drag Raymond Spencer into the room immediately. This completely annoys her because she has already told everyone a million times that she moved on from this guy. But just when things seem chaotic, she realizes she has the perfect excuse. Since she literally just woke up from a fatal head injury in front of a massive crowd, she decides to play the ultimate amnesia card to escape the drama. She looks right at her father and asks who this Raymond person even is. This completely breaks the brains of everyone in the room. Her dad rushes over in a total panic, reminding her that this is the man she was desperately dying to marry. She just acts clueless and throws out a random name instead. Seeing the massive confusion, the doctor whispers to Damien that the trauma from her accident must have caused her brain to completely erase all painful memories of the guy. Her dad instantly buys it, tearing up over how much his poor daughter must have suffered because of that absolute bastard. Agnes takes full advantage of the chaos and flashes a sweet smile. Instead of that random Raymond guy, she tells her father she wants to see Kyle Gray right now. The Emperor's eyes practically pop out of his head in shock, but our girl is just sitting there grinning, ready to finally meet her man. Damien is confused at first, but once Gray clarifies that he's talking about Sir Kyle Gray, the leader of the Black Knights, the whole room goes quiet for half a second before everyone starts talking at once. Gray is practically glowing, describing him brave, righteous, someone who's pulled him out of danger more than once. But Damien isn't letting that slide, because the point everyone seems to be dancing around is that it was Raymond who saved Agnes this time. Without him, she wouldn't be here. Meanwhile, Agnes is sitting there with her own thoughts running a mile a minute. Something doesn't add up. Walker being in the shopping district at that exact moment felt too convenient, and now she's connecting it back to that morning, when she was told Sir Spencer was visiting the palace and brushed it off. Was Raymond already keeping tabs on her from then? Damien then suggests that maybe seeing Raymond could help Agnes recover her lost memories, and that's when the Emperor steps in, visibly unsettled. He reminds Damien that those memories were buried for a reason and drags the doctor into the conversation to back him up. But Damien isn't backing down either, insisting he cares about Agnes too and pointing out how shaken Raymond clearly was when he saw her. The argument goes back and forth, everyone talking over each other, the tension rising, and right in the middle of all this, Agnes is just sitting there smiling. She's watching these people argue over her life and quietly wishing they'd all just relax. But she knows she can't let this go on, so she does what she has to do. Hand to her head, expression shifting, she quietly tells them her head is hurting and she's still feeling the effects of the accident. Just like that, the chaos pauses. Agnes wins without saying a single real word. The Emperor wastes no time. His decision is firm: bring Kyle Gray to the palace immediately, because right now, getting Agnes's mind settled is all that matters. And Agnes, sitting there with her little performance still fresh, is inwardly pleased with herself. She's glad she kept the memory loss lie going, because now the head injury gives her the perfect cover. And if Kyle is coming either way, she might as well use this moment to get closer to him. Meanwhile, Raymond is standing alone, and the weight of everything is finally catching up to him. He's thinking about the moment he saw Agnes's blood spreading, and just like that, the battlefield came flooding back. The soldiers who were laughing one second and gone the next. The comrade who wouldn't stop talking about his family's letter is now a cold corpse. He had carried all of that grief silently because if he cracked, the morale of everyone around him would have crumbled too. But then his mind drifts to Agnes and how her constant, almost annoying presence had always pulled him out of his own darkness without him ever realizing it, the same way it once helped him forget the pain of losing his mother. He's standing there, quietly unraveling, swearing to himself that he'll never let go of her hand again, that he'll do whatever she wants, marry her, anything, just as long as she opens her eyes. And then, right through the door, he hears her voice. Agnes is awake, and the first thing out of her mouth is asking for Kyle Gray. Raymond's eyes go wide, and you can almost feel the air leave the room. Across the palace, Kyle is already being pulled out of his quarters by Rose Devon, who wastes exactly 0 time explaining the situation. The moment he hears that the princess was in a severe accident and has just woken up, he's throwing on his jacket and moving, telling Rose Devon to brief him on the way there. The moment Kyle arrives at the palace, Rose Devon fills him in on everything as they walk. Agnes went outside the capital, got hit by a carriage, her heart completely stopped, and she was miraculously brought back. Kyle's eyes go wide at that, and the first question out of his mouth is whether she's safe. She is, Rose Devon tells him, but the very first thing the princess asked for when she woke up was him. That clearly catches him off guard, and as they approach the door, he notices Raymond standing nearby with an expression that could only be described as quietly furious. He files that away and steps inside. The room is more crowded than he expected. The Emperor and Damien are both there, and the moment Kyle sees them, he drops to one knee without hesitation. The Emperor tells him to drop the formalities and stand, and the doctor gestures for him to take a seat. Kyle is already scanning the room, trying to figure out what exactly is going on, when Agnes calls his name and reaches out to take his hand. She tells him thank you for saving me, and then, with the kind of calm that fills a very quiet room, she explains that right before people die, their life flashes before their eyes. The Emperor visibly tenses at that. She says she actually experienced it herself, and what stood out most in that moment was her memories of Kyle protecting her. Then she smiles and says that the first thing she wanted to do when she opened her eyes was thank him. The Emperor, clearly uncomfortable with the hand-holding situation, tries to interject. Meanwhile, Damien leans toward the doctor and whispers that this doesn't seem like a simple memory issue to him at all. And without missing a beat, Agnes calls across the room. Your voice is too sharp, brother. She was never losing this room. Damien is giving Agnes a headache, and she is not hiding it anymore. She asks him as politely as she can manage to please leave. Damien looks genuinely offended, but the doctor steps in smoothly and suggests it would be best for the princess's recovery if the crown prince stepped out. Then the Emperor himself tells Damien to return to his quarters, and that settles it. Damien walks out slowly, frustration written all over him, and the room breathes easier. The doctor turns to Agnes and explains that thorough examinations will be conducted over the coming days, which means she needs to stay in her quarters and rest. Agnes smiles sweetly and says that in that case, it would be lovely if Kyle could visit her daily to keep her company. Kyle processes that quietly, clearly caught off guard. She turns to him directly and asks if that is okay, and he tells her that if she commands it, he will do anything. She thanks him warmly, then almost immediately tells him to go rest for today since he just returned from a mission. He thanks her and walks out, but the moment he is in that hallway, his mind is completely unsettled. Agnes actually died and came back. Raymond could not even bring himself to enter the room. And now Kyle has to see her every single day. He has spent so long trying to bury whatever he felt about what happened between them, and now this. He tells himself it was just a drunken accident and tries to move on, but his hands say otherwise. The Emperor says his goodbyes and leaves, and the second Agnes is alone. The composed princess's act drops entirely. She jumps onto her bed, grinning, running through everything she just pulled off. Daily access to Kyle, a headache excuse she can deploy whenever Damien starts talking too much, and the sympathy of the entire palace working in her favor. She glances at the holy relic on her hand and laughs quietly to herself. Raymond went through so much to obtain it, and she got it by nearly dying. Agnes hangs the relic around her neck with a quiet smile, already thinking about what comes next. She's got plans for it. Meanwhile, Kyle gets a visit from Jeremy, who delivers the message that Her Highness is requesting his presence and specifically asks that he be escorted most politely. That word stops Kyle in his tracks. He'd spent the whole night wondering if everything was some strange dream, but clearly it wasn't. He finishes up his paperwork and heads out immediately, but his mind is already running. It's been weeks since he last faced Agnes, not since that night, and now she's summoning him with very deliberate, very specific wording. Something about this whole situation feels off to him. Walking through the corridor, Kyle asks Jeremy to explain the memory situation properly, framing it as not wanting to make any mistakes in front of her. Jeremy tells him that while everything else seems intact, Agnes has completely lost her memories of Raymond Spencer, and only those memories. Kyle absorbs that quietly, drawing on what he witnessed during the war, soldiers who survived massacres and simply erased the trauma from their minds. He finds himself wondering just how brutal Raymond's rejection must have been to break someone as fierce as Agnes that deeply. That detail alone says more about Raymond than any argument ever could. But before he can sit too long with that thought, they round a corner and there Raymond is, standing there like he owns the hallway. The tension is immediate. Raymond asks what Kyle is doing there, and Kyle tells him plainly that he was summoned. Then he throws the question right back. Jeremy's reaction already gave it away though. Raymond showed up unannounced, no invitation, nothing. And when Kyle presses him on it, Raymond deflects with a snide comment about Kyle playing nanny to the princess. Kyle keeps his composure on the outside, but internally, he is done. The nerve of this man, showing up at the door of a woman whose memories of him exist only as pain, acting like he has any right to be there. Kyle is not about to let Raymond's attitude slide. He smiles, pulls away smoothly, and tells him plainly that Agnes summoned him to take over the nanny duties Raymond apparently held before, and that she would obviously be more comfortable with someone she actually remembers. He even adds, completely unbothered, that he'd rather not carry any unpleasant energy into her room. Raymond looks like he's about to say something, but the attendant cuts the tension by announcing Kyle's arrival at the door. Agnes says let him in. Kyle glances back at Raymond one last time, smirks, and walks through the door. Raymond stands there watching it close, fist clenched, jaw tight. Inside, the atmosphere is completely different. Agnes is warm, composed, and quietly delightful, welcoming Kyle with a smile and offering him tea like they do every day. Kyle sits down and tries to hold it together, but his thoughts are already betraying him. He knows she's beautiful, he's always known, but something about being in this softer version of her presence is making it harder to ignore. She tells him the tea feels special when shared with him, and he goes red. He blames the kiss. He tells himself it's only the kiss messing with his head and nothing more. Then she suggests a walk in the garden after tea, and he agrees immediately, grateful for the chance to breathe. But then she pauses, looks at him for a moment too long, and tells him his eyes are truly captivating. Kyle short-circuits. Those words hit somewhere deep and painful, pulling up a memory of his stepmother's cruelty about those same eyes. He doesn't know if Agnes means it or if nearly dying gave her some new appreciation for beauty, but he doesn't get long to think about it. She sets down her cup, stands, and the next thing he knows, her arms are wrapped around his as she says simply, "Let's go, Kyle." His heart is pounding before he even takes a single step. Kyle is already losing the battle with his own thoughts before they even step outside. The fragrance around her is pulling up memories he'd rather keep buried, specifically the time they were both trapped together in a minefield, when everything was chaos, and she was close enough that his senses blurred. Agnes calls his name again and he shakes it off, but the thought lingers. He follows her out into the garden, wondering what exactly he's walked into, because the warm sunlight and the flowers and the gentle breeze feel like they mean absolutely nothing to him right now. His head is full. Agnes, on the other hand, is in her element. Walking beside the person she actually wants to be with, quietly thinking that life has never looked this beautiful before, and that this might be the first time she's genuinely felt grateful to be alive. The only thing slightly dampening the mood is the trail of attendants behind them, but she manages. When Kyle notices a drone following them and questions it, Agnes smoothly tells him the Emperor ordered it for her protection after the accident. Kyle accepts that without pushback, though he does find the sheer amount of attention surrounding one simple walk a little excessive. They eventually settle in the garden for a picnic, and Agnes is fully in her element now, telling him how much better the outing feels because he is there. She offers him a bite of cake, and he declines. Not really one for sweets. She takes a bite herself and lets a little cream sit on her lip, completely on purpose. When Kyle points it out, she wipes the wrong spot and asks innocently if it's gone. He doesn't answer with words. He just quietly reaches for the napkin and says he'll take care of it. She leans in closer. He starts turning red. Kyle is spiraling and he knows it. He wipes the cream from her lip and immediately starts lecturing himself internally, pulling up every memory of how she's treated him, every humiliation, every cold dismissal, trying to use it as armor. It almost works. Then Agnes tells him he's quite kind and the armor cracks a little. His thoughts drift to Raymond, and honestly, the anger helps more than the memories do. The idea of Raymond sitting where he's sitting right now, using this whole memory loss situation as a second chance, possibly daring to steal a kiss under the guise of winning her back, genuinely disgusts him. He holds on to that feeling like a lifeline. Then Agnes says she's feeling a little sleepy and asks if she can take a short nap. Kyle offers to give her space. She says no and lies down directly on his lap. His eyes go wide. The attendants standing behind them are visibly unsure whether to intervene, and Kyle just sits there, frozen, having a full internal crisis. He runs through the list of every painful thing he has endured in his life. Bullying, neglect, loneliness, torture, endless war. He handled all of it. All of it was manageable. But her warm tone, that smile that somehow feels like something soft and sweet, and those eyes that look at him like he's worth something, those are the things that are actually breaking him. He's never felt this particular feeling before, and he does not know what to do with it. He tells himself he won't acknowledge it. He tells himself he must not. And yet he's letting her sleep on his lap without moving a single inch. Back at the picnic, Chloe and Emma are standing off to the side, whispering to each other with the energy of two people watching something unfold that they absolutely cannot explain. The princess has been acting completely different, with a softer voice, leaning in close, and now sleeping on a man's lap like it's the most natural thing in the world. They both agree that something is off, but they just cannot figure out what. Later, our girl is back in her room with a book open in front of her and zero intention of actually reading it. She is still replaying Kyle's flustered expression from earlier and finding it genuinely delightful. The way he reacts and then immediately scrambles to look composed is, to her, the most adorable thing she has ever witnessed. Chloe and Emma interrupt her thoughts, coming in with their barely disguised interrogation about the walk, the nap, and what they talked about. Agnes clocks them immediately but keeps her answers simple and pleasant. Then she decides it is time to do something deliberate. She starts telling them about Kyle, the real Kyle, the one who stepped in front of danger for her without a second thought, who stayed awake through the night when she collapsed on a mission, who carried her so she would not have to risk stepping on a mine. By the time she finishes, both Chloe and Emma are visibly reconsidering every assumption they ever made about him, but underneath all of it there is something genuinely tender in her intentions. She wants Kyle to live long, to shed the inferiority complex that was never properly seen or addressed, and to finally experience the world with some warmth. That is the real reason she wants him close. Agnes means every word of it. What she feels for Kyle is genuine, no performance, no exaggeration. Meanwhile, across the palace, Raymond is sitting alone with a glass of wine and his thoughts, and neither is doing him any good. Agnes turned down his request to meet but personally called for Kyle, and that detail is eating at him. The doctor's words keep replaying in his head, that apart from the memory loss, the princess is completely fine. And that is exactly what is breaking him, because he knows whose fault that missing memory is. He was the one who ignored her deliberately, who chose cruel words on purpose, who genuinely wanted her to hurt. Regretting it now feels useless. The glass slips from his hand before he even realizes it, and moments later, Damien walks in and finds him collapsed on the floor, shouting for a physician before he even fully processes what he is seeing. Unconscious, Raymond's mind pulls him straight back to one of those moments he clearly never stopped carrying. Agnes is holding him to a promise he is pretending he never made, telling him she doesn't want anyone else, that she only needs him. And he is standing there coldly dismantling every word she says, accusing her of acting like a child, telling her that if she keeps this up, no one will stay by her side. She grabs his hand and tells him she won't let go. He pulls away anyway. In his own memory, he remembers hating her desperation, her refusal to accept anything less than him, her stubborn grip. He called it an obsession. He called it arrogance. He told himself it was exactly why he wanted nothing to do with her. But lying here unconscious, reliving every second of it, it is starting to look a lot less like something he escaped and a lot more like something he destroyed. Raymond's dream pushes further back. He is standing there telling Agnes that living with a demon would be preferable to being dragged around by her for the rest of his life. And Agnes, instead of breaking, simply tells him she will wait, that if he ever changes his mind, he only has to call for her. Then she lets him walk away. In his unconscious state, Raymond is turning that moment over and over. He had always counted on her stubbornness to mean she would be fine. She was selfish, childish, and impossibly fixated on him, and he told himself that her love was more performance than feeling. But as time passed, something shifted quietly. Her gaze never wavered, even when he gave her every reason to walk away, and slowly, without ever naming it, he had begun to depend on that. The fear of her truly disappearing had crept in before he ever admitted it to himself. He understands it now. He leaned on her love far more than he ever acknowledged. And now that he finally sees it clearly, now that he is ready to stop hurting her, she has forgotten him entirely. He opens his eyes to Damien sitting beside him, visibly relieved but not bothering to hide his confusion. Damien tells him his subordinates were worried, that he himself came to check, and that Raymond has clearly not been eating or acting like himself. He admits honestly that he never expected Agnes's near death to hit Raymond this hard. Raymond looks at him and says simply that he thought so too. But that small, stubborn heart of hers had quietly filled his entire life without him realizing it, and the moment it nearly stopped, he crumbled completely. Damien asks him directly if his feelings for Agnes have changed. Raymond is quiet for a moment. Then he says he is not even sure himself. Raymond is lying there, barely holding himself together, convinced that Agnes forgiving him was never even a possibility. In his mind, he was her entire world, and he treated that like a burden. Damien is watching him fall apart and thinking to himself that this is almost painfully ironic. Raymond is finally waking up to his own feelings, finally becoming aware of what he had, and it happened right after Agnes lost every memory of him. The timing couldn't be worse. But Damien is not the type to just watch a disaster unfold, especially not when it involves someone he has known and cared for his whole life. He decides right there that it is time to step in. He asks Raymond directly if he wants to make things right with Agnes, if he wants to marry her. Raymond's eyes go wide. He admits that he always assumed marriage to Agnes would come eventually if the royal family commanded it, that he would have had no choice. Back then, the idea felt worse than death. But now that he is sitting with the reality of losing her completely, it feels less like an obligation and more like something being stolen from him. Damien pushes further, asking not about duty but about what Raymond actually wants, whether he wants her to love him again. And Raymond, quietly, says yes. Damien smiles and tells him to think of it as a fresh start, that since Agnes has forgotten the pain, if Raymond treats her well this time, she will fall for him again. Raymond exhales and lets himself believe it. Maybe this really is a chance to begin again. It's late at night and Raymond is standing outside the princess's palace, completely lost in thought. Damien's words keep echoing in his head. A chance to start over. A chance to become someone different from his father. For the first time in a long while, everything feels clear. He believes this is his opportunity to change the future and make sure no woman ever suffers the way Agnes and his mother once did. Looking back, he remembers how desperately he clung to her before, promising he would do anything for her. At the time, her rejection felt like a disaster, but now he sees it differently. To him, it all feels like fate pulling them together. Agnes died and somehow returned to life, forgetting everything about him in the process. Yet instead of feeling discouraged, Raymond becomes even more obsessed with what comes next. Then, as if on cue, Agnes steps onto her balcony. The moment he spots her, his imagination runs wild. Will she fall in love with him instantly this time? Or will it happen slowly? Either way, he's already convinced she'll love him again. And honestly, that's starting to sound a little worrying. He silently promises to fill her life with nothing but good memories, so she'll never leave him again. Unfortunately for him, Agnes finally notices the guy staring at her room in the middle of the night and immediately retreats inside, slamming the balcony door shut. Yeah, I'd be creeped out too. Peeking through the window, she can't understand why he's acting this way. He followed her after the accident, nearly fought Kyle outside her room, and keeps showing up at the strangest moments. Instead of trying to figure him out any further, she decides she'd rather focus on tomorrow's date. By the next day, the mood shifts when Jeremy arrives with orders from the princess, informing Kyle that Lord Grey is being summoned immediately. Kyle tries to protest, saying the timing is inconvenient, but Jeremy makes it clear this isn't a request. As he prepares to leave, his thoughts drift toward the Grey family, a connection he no longer wants tangled around his life. Ever since things began changing, even the people around him have started acting differently. Just recently, he experienced something completely unfamiliar. While walking outside, a group of noble ladies approached him with bright smiles and greeted him warmly as Sir Grey. Now that's a reaction he definitely wasn't used to before. The ladies outside had heard stories about Kyle and the Black Knights, and they made a point of telling him so. He thanks them quickly and keeps moving, but the interaction stays with him. These days have been strange in the quietest possible way, peaceful almost, and he does not entirely trust it. He knows better than to settle into something that feels this good. He arrives to find Agnes in bright spirits, the physician's report apparently very promising. They head out to the garden and she thanks him again, genuinely, for everything these past few days. Kyle deflects immediately, insisting he hasn't done anything special, that anyone could have done the same. Agnes stops him right there and asks, almost too casually, whether he dislikes spending time with her. Kyle backtracks so fast it's almost funny, telling her no, absolutely not, that's not what he meant at all. She smiles and tells him she feels the same way. That anyone could walk beside her, but not everyone makes that time feel the way he does. That when she is with him, she feels safe. She feels happy. Kyle processes that quietly and immediately starts arguing with himself about it, telling himself not to get comfortable, that this is all temporary, that he is nobody, and everything will eventually snap back to how it was. He has seen this kind of warmth get pulled away before, and he refuses to be caught off guard. But then Agnes reaches toward his face, and his whole body goes still. She simply brushes a petal from his cheek and smiles at him. And just like that, every wall he just carefully rebuilt starts to crack. He looks at that smile, and the thought slips through before he can stop it. Maybe, just maybe, she loves him. Agnes tells him that a knight suits flowers quite well, and Kyle looks genuinely caught off guard by that, saying it is the first time he has ever heard such a thing. She tells him, well, now he knows. He pauses and then quietly tells her that he thinks a princess like her suits flowers better. Agnes turns it back on him and asks what kind of person he thinks she is, and Kyle, red-faced and unable to maintain eye contact, says simply that she is someone who knows how to smile brightly. Agnes is internally melting. She is looking at this flustered man and thinking that if she seems bright at all, it is only because his light is reflecting on her. She has had enough of holding it in. She asks him to smile for her, just once, a really bright one. Kyle turns and offers the stiffest, clearly unpracticed smile she has ever seen. He admits quietly that he has not genuinely smiled in almost a year. Agnes covers her mouth with her hand. He starts to say it probably does not suit him, but she tells him it is cute and that it suits him perfectly, then immediately says she wants to see something more natural. She starts asking what he likes, what food he enjoys, and anything fun recently. He has no answers. So she stands up and declares, completely seriously, that she is going to find out what Kyle Gray likes and she is going to make him smile for real. Kyle turns it around and asks what she likes. Agnes's internal answer is a whole list, starting with him specifically. But what comes out of her mouth is that she likes sweet desserts and cute things. He asks what she dislikes, and something shifts. She starts thinking about cold entrances, about silence, about waiting, and before she fully catches herself, she says out loud that she dislikes being left alone. The words land heavier than she intended. She recovers quickly, adding that it goes back to when her mother passed away, but the realness of that moment hangs in the air just a little longer than she would have liked. Agnes explains it quietly. Her mother was beloved by everyone in the palace, and when she passed, the entire world seemed to stop. Her father could not face anyone. Damien was drowning in his own grief. And Agnes, who was too young to fully understand death, just kept wondering why no one was coming back, why no one was paying attention to her anymore. She remembers knocking on Damien's door simply because she was bored and lonely, and he came out and told her their mother had just died, and here she was thinking about herself. He called her pathetic, told her he had a country to lead, and she needed to go back to her room. The only person who held her through any of it was her nanny, who told her she would be all right. And then the nanny passed away too. So she filled the silence with parties, with noise, with anything that kept her from sitting alone with that feeling that she was the only person left in the world. She catches herself mid-memory and pulls back, aware that she has just shared something deeply real. Kyle is quiet for a moment, and then he tells her simply that she can call for him anytime. For conversation, for protection, for anything at all. He says it plainly, without making it into something grand, just that he understands those feelings and he wants to help however he can, even if it is only in small ways. Agnes smiles and thanks him, and they walk on together. Kyle's thoughts are moving in a direction he keeps trying to redirect. He is asking himself why she cares, why his smallest actions seem to matter to her, why she shows him the parts of herself she hides from everyone else. And then the question he has been avoiding rises to the surface again. That kiss. Was it really just a mistake? The more time he spends with her, the harder it becomes to believe that her heart was ever truly pointed at Raymond. Later, the Emperor calls Kyle in privately and asks him directly how Agnes is doing, whether strange rumors are forming, and what Kyle makes of the trust she has placed in him. The Emperor's message is not subtle. He frames it as concern, but the warning underneath is crystal clear. If Kyle ever develops improper intentions toward the princess, there will be consequences. Kyle reassures him calmly, tells him there is nothing to worry about, that the trust between them is minimal, and no rumors would dare touch the princess. The Emperor accepts that and dismisses him. But walking away, Kyle is doing something quietly brutal to himself. He tells himself that the Emperor's concern made one thing obvious, that he had been entertaining thoughts with absolutely no self-awareness. Even if Agnes did feel something for him, she is the most treasured woman in the entire empire. She would never risk everything she has built in society for someone like him. What he mistook for affection was nothing more than passing curiosity and a little kindness. He calls himself pathetic for even letting the thought form. The next day, Kyle arrives at the palace and is already feeling the weight of yesterday's conversation with the Emperor when the butler informs him that there is another visitor and asks if he would mind waiting elsewhere. The visitor is Raymond. Kyle processes that quietly and decides it is actually fine, that the distance might help him clear his head, and tells the butler he will simply return tomorrow. But just as he turns to leave, he hears the butler relay to Agnes that Raymond Spencer has come to see her. Something shifts in Kyle immediately. Raymond knows he comes every day at this hour. This visit is deliberate. Meanwhile, inside, Agnes is genuinely annoyed. She had the perfect outfit, perfect hair, perfect everything, ready for their time together, and now Raymond is standing at her door, refusing to leave until she sees him. The audacity of the timing is almost impressive. Agnes is standing there, imagining her perfect outing with Kyle and genuinely refusing to let Raymond ruin it. She tells the butler to escort Kyle to the reception room the moment he arrives and to make sure desserts are waiting for him. Then she takes a breath and lets Raymond in, telling herself she will hear whatever he has to say and send him off quickly. Chloe and Emma are already on edge behind her, whispering about what he could want, whether he is here to cause trouble. Agnes tells them it is probably just a courtesy visit. Though even she does not quite believe that, given how persistent he was about getting through the door. Raymond walks in and the room shifts the way it always does around him. Agnes notices it, that effortless presence that comes with being the original protagonist of this story, and quietly reminds herself that he is simply not her type. She thanks him politely for helping after the accident and tries to move things along. Raymond asks the maids to step out, and before Agnes can even react, they are already shuffling toward the door. She is screaming internally. With the room now empty, she tells him to state his business or leave because she has somewhere to be. Raymond says his business is hers. Then he tells her, completely unbothered, that he does not need permission to visit her because that was always the arrangement between them. Agnes looks at him like he has lost his mind. She tells him she has never heard anything like that in her life and asks if he thinks he is her guardian or something. Raymond says no. He says that was intended to be a gift to her. Raymond is standing there watching Agnes look at him with empty eyes, and the reality of it settles over him like cold water. She genuinely does not remember him, not a trace. And the painful irony is that he is only now noticing how beautiful she is, now that she is looking at him like a stranger. Agnes, completely unbothered by whatever is happening in his head, cuts straight to it and asks him point blank why he was lurking outside her bedroom window. Raymond delivers his explanation about palace security and royal guard duties with a straight face. Agnes is not even slightly convinced, but she lets it go, tells him she has prior engagements, and asks him to leave. Raymond stands, bows, and says he will return tomorrow. Agnes stops him right there. She tells him clearly that if she needs him, she will call. Then he should not come looking for her. Raymond accepts that and walks out. The second the door closes, Agnes exhales as she has just finished running a race. She sits with it for a moment, turning over whether Raymond was always this intense in the original story. He did have a slightly obsessive streak, she remembers. Once trailing a soldier he found suspicious who turned out to actually be a spy. So the instinct was always there. But this energy he is bringing to her door right now feels distinctly like a man who has realized too late what he lost. She shakes it off and starts thinking about Kyle instead, wondering whether to rest before he arrives or head straight to the lodge. Outside, Kyle has already been waiting. The moment Raymond steps out of Agnes's room, the two of them are face to face. Kyle does not waste a single word. He tells Raymond plainly that the princess calls for him every single day, then asks why Raymond keeps showing up at her door after treating her like she was nothing but a burden. Raymond does not take Kyle's words well at all. He snaps back, telling Kyle not to delude himself into thinking Agnes seeks him for the same reasons she once sought Raymond. And the cruel part is that Kyle already knows that. He has been telling himself the same thing repeatedly. But something about hearing it from Raymond's mouth makes it impossible to swallow quietly. He smiles anyway, cool and deliberate, and tells Raymond that a misunderstanding is entirely possible, that stranger things have happened. Raymond fires back, asking if Kyle is seriously afraid he might seduce the princess away. Kyle throws the question right back at him without blinking. Then Raymond goes for the lowest blow available, asking whether Kyle genuinely believes someone like him could ever win the princess over, calling him shameless. The butler standing nearby is internally begging both of them to lower their voices before the entire palace hears this. Meanwhile, on the other side of the door, Agnes has heard absolutely everything. She had just been about to step out and ask when Kyle would arrive, and instead she walked into the middle of a full territorial standoff happening in her name. She is pressed against that door like she paid for front row seats. She is trying to decide whether to reward her attendance with a holiday for letting her witness this uninterrupted, and she is genuinely tempted to burst through the door and ask Raymond exactly how he plans to seduce her, because she would love to see him try. She is mid-thought when both Kyle and Raymond simultaneously notice her standing there and call out her name. Agnes freezes. Kyle goes completely red, his mind immediately jumping to how much she heard. Raymond bows and excuses himself, and the awkward silence he leaves behind is almost suffocating. Kyle is replaying every word he said out in that hallway and internally cringing at all of it. He was not being sincere. He was just refusing to let Raymond win. And now the one person he least wanted to see that side of him has heard every single word. Agnes tells him to come inside and sit, and the silence stretches just long enough to feel heavy before Kyle finally asks if she heard everything from the beginning. She says yes. And just like that, Kyle starts preparing himself for the worst, convinced that the warmth she has shown him these past days is about to disappear completely. He has exposed the most petty, insecure part of himself, the part driven by an inferiority complex he has never fully dealt with, and he showed it to her of all people. He stumbles through an apology, telling her he did not mean any of it seriously, that he just wanted to get under Raymond's skin. He says he knows it is just excuses, but he is sorry. He means every word of that apology, even if it comes out clumsy. Agnes is sitting there listening to him apologize and trying very hard not to smile. Because what she actually heard out in that hallway did not make her angry at all. It made her notice him even more. She is turning it over in her mind, thinking about how Kyle spits sharp words out of jealousy and then immediately owns it, how someone with an inferiority complex is really just someone with the will to grow, and how he has always pushed through his own pain to show up for others. He is out here apologizing, and she is falling harder by the second. She finds herself wondering if this is what people mean when they talk about fate. That quiet pull between two people that keeps making sense, no matter how much one of them tries to fight it. Agnes asks Kyle directly whether he truly had no intentions of seducing her. He says absolutely not, that he would never dare. Agnes smiles on the outside and thinks that it is mildly disappointing on the inside. She pushes further, asking why Raymond would even be provoked by the idea if he never had feelings for her to begin with. Kyle admits that he used to think the same thing, but Raymond's recent behavior suggests something has shifted. Agnes does not love hearing that. The thought of Raymond genuinely developing feelings for her now, of all times, is not a welcome one. Kyle adds that even if Raymond does not truly care for her, at the very least he feels like something is being taken from him. And the more that pressure builds, the more intense his reaction will be. Agnes processes that and then, with a slow smile, tells Kyle that the closer the two of them act, the more uncomfortable Raymond will feel. Kyle agrees that it is probably true. And Agnes says simply, "So shall they keep doing exactly that for a while?" Kyle looks genuinely caught off guard. She calls it a contract and considers it settled. Later, Agnes is alone and absolutely glowing. She had been ready to walk out there and confront Raymond herself. Now she feels like sending him a thank you note and some pocket money. Because of him, she now has an excuse to stay close to Kyle, and everything about that makes her happy. The timing gets even better when the physician clears her to resume social activities and receive visitors freely. No more being confined to her quarters. She is already thinking about everything she gets to do now, and just as she is settling into that excitement, her first official visitor walks through the door. It is Hazel, and she is crying. Agnes stares at her, genuinely confused, because the original story's heroine showing up in tears at her door is not exactly how she imagined her freedom starting. Hazel is standing there with tears running down her face, telling Agnes she had wanted to visit sooner, but her younger brother fell ill. Agnes absorbs that. Briefly thinking about the famously sickly and apparently very handsome twin brother she had only ever heard about in rumors. But what catches her more off guard is Hazel's presence itself. Of all the people whose attitudes had softened toward her recently, Hazel was not on her list. Their only real interaction had been a tense exchange where Hazel essentially asked if Agnes was serious about giving up on Raymond. That was the extent of their relationship. So when Hazel asks whether it is true that Agnes has lost her memories of Raymond, Agnes immediately understands why she is really here. She confirms it plainly, saying she has no reason to lie about something like that. Hazel exhales with visible relief and says she is so glad, then immediately tries to walk it back by saying she meant she was glad the recovery was going smoothly. Agnes does not believe that for a second. She tells Hazel that if her business is done, she can leave, and Hazel bows, says she will visit again, and slips out before Agnes can even process what just happened. Agnes sits in quiet for a moment and sighs. According to her original plan, she was supposed to settle into a peaceful life with Kyle while everyone else moved on happily. Instead, Raymond keeps showing up at her door, and now Hazel is crying in her reception room. The rain comes later that day and somehow turns into the most comfortable afternoon Agnes has had in a while. She and Kyle are sitting across from each other over a chessboard, and he wins again. He gently suggests she is going easy on him, and she deflects. But internally, she is cataloging everything she is learning about him that the original story never bothered to show. He is unexpectedly good at chess and has a dry sense of humor about it. He learned the game from a fellow nobleman who apparently made more money gambling than actually working. Kyle says it with a small smile, and Agnes nearly loses focus entirely. She is sitting there thinking about how rough and unreadable he was written to be in the source material. He had no space to just exist comfortably. She keeps thinking about how watching him be this open and transparent with her right now feels genuinely healing. The fact that he is showing her this side of himself at all tells her something important. Kyle is slowly, quietly, opening up to her. Agnes tries to gently open the door to Kyle's past by asking how he got into mercenary work. He smiles and tells her it is not exactly a pleasant story for a princess to hear. She lets it go, recognizing that he is not ready to go there yet, and files it away. The evening winds down naturally. Kyle stands and says he has work to get back to, and they part warmly. Agnes is already telling him she will send for him at the same time tomorrow. Walking away, Kyle is somewhere else entirely in his thoughts. He is thinking about how different he feels around her, not like the dirty and petty survivor he knows himself to be, but like someone upright, someone worth something, and that feeling terrifies him a little. Because she does not know his past, and if she ever did, the warmth she looks at him with would disappear. He knows that. But just a little longer, he tells himself. Just a tiny bit more of this feeling before reality comes back. That thought alone was enough to break something in me. The next morning, Jeremy arrives to tell him the princess says he does not need to come today. Kyle goes completely still. His mind immediately starts running through every possible thing he did wrong. Every moment he might have overstepped. Every sign he missed. He tells himself it should not bother him, that the old version of this situation would have been fine, but the silence of not seeing her today sits heavier than he expected. Meanwhile, at the palace, Emma bursts into Agnes's room with news that stops her cold. The Emperor has declared she must be accompanied by guards at all times when leaving her quarters. Agnes's first thought is her plans with Kyle, and specifically the mine scenario she had already been considering. Gone. But before she can even process that properly, Emma hits her with the bigger problem. Damien is pushing to install Raymond as her official guard. Agnes is up off that bed before Emma finishes the sentence. She tells her to go inform Kyle that he does not need to come today, because she needs to deal with Damien right now before this gets any further. She is furious, focused, and completely done being patient about this particular situation. Damien has clearly been working on this behind the scenes for a while. He lays out his case to the Emperor methodically, reminding him that the escort knight position has been empty for a reason. Every candidate Agnes rejected over the years, regardless of skill or status, was rejected for one real reason. She only ever wanted Raymond. And by Damien's measure, Raymond still stands as the most qualified option available. The Emperor pushes back and suggests Sir Clifford of the Golden Knights. Damien shoots that down immediately, pointing out that Agnes would spend every day insulting the man. The Emperor does not even argue with that assessment. Damien then goes for the real point, telling his father directly that the deeper issue is not Raymond's qualifications but the Emperor's personal grudge against the Duke of Spencer. He also asks whether blocking this appointment is truly about Agnes's well-being or about that. It lands. Before the Emperor can respond, the doors open, and Agnes walks in like she heard every single word. The Emperor asks if she is all right. She says yes, and then skips straight to the point. She has heard about the escort knight situation, and she wants both the Emperor and Damien to understand something clearly. If either Raymond or Sir Clifford is appointed, she will not leave her chambers. Not one step. Damien looks stunned. The Emperor looks stunned. She keeps going, saying that Raymond's face alone makes her uncomfortable now. Then she says that Sir Clifford is so restrained she would walk all over him without consequence. She would rather enter a convent than accept either of them. The Emperor visibly panics at the word convent, explaining that convents mean complete isolation, that even royalty cannot enter freely. Agnes lets that land and then plays her final card. She reminds her father that years ago, after she rejected every escort knight presented to her, he promised that if she ever found someone she actually wanted, he would honor that choice. The Emperor confirms it, and Agnes begins to say the name. Damien's eyes go wide. The Emperor's eyes go wide. They both already know exactly who she is about to say. Agnes says the name clearly. Sir Kyle Grey. The Emperor exhales like he already knew it was coming. He asks her directly whether she has feelings for Kyle. Agnes smiles and rests her chin in her hand. She tells him not to worry. It's nothing like that. The Emperor accepts that with visible relief. Then Agnes pivots immediately into the most composed political argument anyone in that room has ever heard from her. She points out that Kyle saved her life and that granting him a noble title has faced opposition from the aristocrats. Also, appointing him as her escort knight would serve as a powerful example of the royal family rewarding loyalty and merit regardless of status. Damien is staring at her like she has grown a second head, genuinely trying to figure out when his sister learned to argue like this. But Damien, being Damien, finds his footing quickly. He agrees with her logic and then uses it against her, pointing out that by the same reasoning, Raymond should also be considered since he saved her publicly during the accident. He proposes splitting the days, 3 for Kyle and 4 for Raymond. Agnes immediately wants to know why Raymond gets more. Damien explains calmly that since the incident happened partly due to Kyle's oversight, Raymond's efforts deserve to be weighted more highly. Agnes pushes back, reminding Damien that she has a personal debt to Kyle for the way she treated him in the past due to his origins. That this appointment is also her public way of showing she has changed. She asks Damien to consider her reputation and honor her wishes. Damien looks at her for a long moment, clearly processing the fact that his sister just outmaneuvered him twice in the same conversation. He concedes. 5 days for Kyle, 3 for Raymond. Agnes accepts it with a gracious smile and privately considers it a satisfying win, even if not a perfect one. The Emperor sits through all of this, thinking he would have honestly preferred none of it had happened at all. The appointments are made official the next day, and the news moves through the palace fast. People read Kyle's recognition as proof that merit could overcome status. While some of the aristocrats pushed back, the reputation he had quietly built worked in his favor, and most received it well. Far away from all of that, at the Grey Manor, Kyle's father reads the news. He crumples the paper in his fist and thinks about that insolent brat who just got rewarded by the royal family. Kyle's brothers are completely unraveling. One is demanding to know if any of this makes sense. The other is questioning Kyle's loyalty for ignoring every contact they sent his way. Both are looking at their father, expecting him to do something. Austin finally snaps at them to be quiet, pressing a hand to his head, clearly struggling to think straight. Then he notices Julia crying quietly in the corner, and something shifts in him. He sits with his thoughts, and what comes out is not grief but resentment. Kyle's rising reputation isn't something Austin can even take credit for, yet he is the one paying the social price for it. The high nobles he has been trying to get close to are pulling away. The ones who used to show him favor are now redirecting that energy toward Kyle, and then the butler returns with news that Kyle refused to meet with them, claiming he was busy. Austin's patience evaporates completely. In his mind, Kyle owes him. He is the reason Kyle had any foundation to stand on at all. And now that Kyle has the princess's trust, the least he could do is make introductions. The fact that he is openly avoiding them feels like a slap in the face. Austin tells himself that Kyle cannot hide from him forever, not in this empire. Meanwhile, Kyle is sitting alone, reading the appointment letter and feeling something much quieter and more complicated. His mind keeps drifting back to the moment Agnes heard everything he said to Raymond in that hallway. She accepted his apology on the surface, but he is convinced she was disappointed in him underneath it. The silence that followed confirmed it. He replays the chess afternoon, the way she asked where he learned to play. The way she leaned toward the question about his past was like she genuinely wanted to know. When he was with her, he did not feel like the Kyle Gray everyone looked down on. He felt like someone worth something. Kyle is sitting with that letter and the weight of everything it represents. The days before it arrived had been some of the hardest he had quietly endured. The thought of never seeing that side of Agnes again. The warm, genuine, unguarded version of her had settled into him like something he could not shake loose. He felt pathetic for how strongly it hit him over what was, on the surface, just a few weeks of someone being kind to him. He had nearly talked himself into requesting an early mission just to have somewhere to direct the feeling, and then the letter arrived. She made him her escort knight. He sits there holding it and turning over what it means. Whether she is truly willing to look past what happened, whether that warmth is still available to him. And somewhere in the middle of all that, a quieter question surfaces. When exactly did her every small action start to matter this much to him? Was it after the accident? Or had it already begun before that? And even if he could find a way to pull back now, does he actually want to? Across the palace, Raymond receives the same appointment letter, and his reaction is a completely different animal. He had dismissed Kyle entirely up until recently, never considering him worth thinking about. But Kyle's words during that confrontation had burrowed under his skin in a way he cannot fully explain. The idea that Agnes could genuinely develop feelings for an illegitimate child of a minor court noble had struck him as laughable. And yet in that moment, something in his chest had moved. He had not been able to forget it. What makes it worse is the breakdown of days. 5 for Kyle, 2 for Raymond. Raymond reads that and feels like a verdict. He folds the letter slowly and makes himself a promise. 2 days are enough. What matters is winning Agnes's heart back. And he intends to do exactly that. Kyle arrives at the palace, and the moment he sees Agnes, his eyes go wide. She is smiling at him, telling him the new uniform suits him well. He manages a thank you while still processing everything. She extends her hand toward him with a quiet ceremony, welcoming him formally as her escort knight. Kyle kneels, takes her hand, pledges his loyalty to her, and presses his lips to her hand. The whole thing is composed and ceremonial on the outside. Inside, Kyle is already spiraling, convincing himself that she had only tolerated his touch before because she was disoriented. And now that she is fully herself, she must find it unpleasant. Agnes, on the other hand, is looking at him in that uniform and thinking that the original story truly wasted him. She is privately congratulating her past self for fighting to get here. He stands, she loops her arm through his, tells him they have somewhere to go, and the red that floods his face is immediate and total. They take a carriage out to a hill near the fortress, a place that overlooks a sprawling forest and a wide lake that sits so beautifully it barely feels real. It is not an open day, which means they have it entirely to themselves. Agnes had planned this deliberately, and the sight does not disappoint. She pulls Kyle to a bench and tells him to sit. He glances back at Jeremy and Chamberlain almost instinctively before he lets himself settle beside her. Agnes looks out at the view and says quietly that it is a strange thing to feel grateful for the cool wind. Kyle looks at her and turns red all over again. She catches him looking and immediately glances away. These two are going to give each other heart problems before any of this is resolved. They sit together looking out at the lake, and Agnes says quietly that she has never seen scenery this beautiful before, and she means it in a way that goes deeper than the view. She has never felt this still, not in her past life, not in this one, not until right now. Then she turns to Kyle and apologizes. Simply, sincerely, without any performance behind it. She tells him she is sorry for every time she disrespected and insulted him. She says that she will not do it again, and she asks him to forgive her. Kyle looks at her like he does not quite know what to do with those words. She asks again, and he says yes. She smiles and thanks him. Internally, she is acknowledging something she had been quietly avoiding. Even though she had always thought of herself as separate from the princess whose life she stepped into, the damage that the princess caused was still real. The traces were still there. And this moment is her beginning to retrace them. As she looks at him sitting beside her, she thinks about how sharp and guarded he appears to everyone else, and how completely different the person underneath actually is. She wants to fill his world with enough warmth that loneliness stops being something he carries alone. They head back down and into the carriage, and Kyle is barely holding himself together. He is cataloging everything about her without meaning to. The softness of her cheeks, the way her voice carries even against the wind, the shape of her smile when it reaches her eyes. Every single thing about her is hitting him in a way he has never experienced before, and it is making him feel like he is coming apart at the seams. She leans against him in the carriage, and he raises his hand toward her shoulder and then stops himself. He curls his fist instead and holds it there, knowing with complete certainty that if he does not keep himself in check, he will do something irreversible. The carriage rolls back toward the Imperial Castle as the light fades, and Kyle still has no answer for what to do with any of what he is feeling. Agnes is in her room, cradling a little doll that looks just like Kyle, completely unbothered, thinking about how excellent that purchase was. Then the reality that today is one of his off days settles over her, and she sighs at the doll as if it owes her answers. Jeremy's voice cuts through the door, announcing a visitor, and her first thought is that maybe Kyle came early. It is not Kyle. It is Sir Sirius Melville of the White Knights. Agnes processes that. She thinks about how Hazel showed up unannounced just days ago. She concludes that the White Knights as an organization have completely abandoned structure. She tells Jeremy to put Sirius in the reception room and mentally prepares herself. Sirius sits down across from her and asks about the accident. He confirms he heard about the memory loss and seems genuinely concerned. Agnes is handling it fine. Then he reaches into his jacket, produces a ring, and tells her he has come to hold her in his heart. Agnes stares at the ring. Then, at him. I need everyone in this palace to stop showing up at her room with emotional declarations. Sirius pushes forward before she can recover. He explains that a soldier on his last mission bragged about his fiancée, and it cracked open a memory Sirius had sealed away for years. He had a childhood fiancée once, arranged by his family, someone he had genuinely loved with everything he had. She left him without looking back for a noble she met at a party, and after that, Sirius had simply stopped letting people in. Then one day, he accompanied Raymond on the princess's first mission. Then he heard that she had been hurt by him in the same quiet, invisible way Sirius once was, and something about that had stayed with him ever since. Sirius finishes his confession with full conviction, telling our girl that watching her bounce back from Raymond's rejection with her head high was what made him lose his heart completely. She was nothing as he expected, nothing like the wounded version of his past self he had projected onto her. She had moved forward with such clarity and strength that he found himself falling before he even realized it. Then came news of her accident, and his heart dropped. Then came news that Raymond had been erased from her memory entirely, and Sirius decided the heavens were sending him a signal. So the moment visits were permitted, he came straight to her door with a ring. Agnes stands up and says no before he even finishes the sentence. Sirius blinks. She tells him plainly that he is not her type. Sirius is genuinely stunned because of his own private assessment. He is quite objectively attractive, the kind of man the entire capital tends to lose its mind over. Before he can finish that thought, Agnes cuts in and calls him a playboy. He insists that it is the past, that he only has eyes for her now. She looks at him and says that the past does not simply disappear because he has decided to move on from it, and that she does not care for men who are not pure. That lands on Sirius like a physical blow. He leaves the palace visibly shaken. Nobody around him can figure out what happened because he refuses to say a word. He ends up at a bar, head flat on the table, seated next to Hazel and Diana. He is quietly sobbing about whether being a playboy was truly his downfall. He lifts his head and asks Hazel, through his tears, if she finds it funny. Then accuses her of secretly liking him. Hazel says nothing. Diana pats his back and tells him to cheer up, and Hazel just smiles. Agnes wakes up and checks the schedule. She sees Raymond's name and immediately decides she is not leaving her room for any reason today. She announces to her maids that she will be spending the entire day reading and does not want to be disturbed. Her maids, who also have absolutely no interest in running into Raymond, agree with a speed that says everything. They step out, pass the message to Chamberlain, and disappear. Agnes settles back into her chair with her book and immediately starts thinking, instead of reading. She is tired in a way that goes deeper than today. The weekdays have been full of carefully arranged tea parties with noble women she handpicked, specifically to build Kyle's reputation among the aristocracy. And it has been working. Women who never once considered Kyle Gray as a prospect are now quietly discussing him as a potential son-in-law, which is a sentence that would have been unthinkable not long ago. The part that catches Agnes off guard is that nobody suspects anything between her and Kyle, not a single person. Agnes had always worn her feelings openly. The way she chased Raymond was practically public record. And yet somehow her genuine feelings for Kyle are passing completely under everyone's radar. She is not sure whether to feel relieved or slightly insulted. She settles on relieved, decides it protects Kyle's position, and moves on. She looks down at the relic in her hand and thinks about the war that is coming, the rift that will eventually crack everything open. She intends to cut it off at the source before it gets that far. Before she can sit too long with that thought, Damien appears at her door entirely too early in the morning, wearing a smile that immediately puts her on alert. He suggests a picnic with his sister, just like old times. Agnes stares at him. A picnic. Sure. What is he planning? Damien brushes off every excuse Agnes throws at him. telling her the gloomy weather is exactly why she should get out, mentioning that she used to beg him to spend time with her when she was small. Agnes calculates quickly. Refusing to obviously could chip away at the reputation she has been carefully rebuilding, and being seen to favor only Kyle and Raymond would raise questions she does not need. She decides to go, get it over with, and return quickly. She finishes getting ready. She steps outside and walks straight into Raymond, standing there waiting. Every plan she had for a peaceful day evaporates on the spot. They get into the carriage, and the silence is immediate and suffocating. Agnes stares out the window with frustration written plainly on her face. Raymond sits across from her, coming apart quietly in his own head. He is thinking about how the old Agnes would have already invaded his personal space twice by now, whispering in his ear or pressing close without asking. It used to irritate him endlessly. Now the distance feels unbearable. He wants her eyes on him, not fixed on whatever is passing outside that window, and the fact that they are not is making him feel something close to desperate. He calls out to her. She does not answer. Then Agnes glances outside and sees Damien standing there, waving at them with a cheerful smile. She stares. Damien mouths something about having fun. Agnes's brain catches up a half-second later, and she realizes what is happening. She looks at her brother and then at the carriage still moving and thinks, Damien, you absolute schemer. The carriage speeds away with Damien waving them off like he has done something wonderful, and Agnes is trapped inside it with Raymond and absolutely nowhere to go. The carriage rides in tense silence while Agnes mentally drafts everything she plans to say to Damien the next time she sees him. He tricked her. He smiled at her, talked about sibling bonding, and shipped her off alone with Raymond like it was nothing. She is filing that away for later. Raymond tries to break the silence by asking what book she was reading yesterday, and Agnes looks at him sideways and asks why she would need to report that to him. Raymond says that as her prospective fiancé, it is a perfectly reasonable question. That word stops Agnes cold. She turns to him and says it clearly and without any warmth. She has no memory of whatever feelings existed between them before, and she has no intention of pretending otherwise. She tells him she hopes he will stop using the word prospective fiancé as an excuse to overstep. She would appreciate it if he recognized where things actually stand right now rather than clinging to a past she cannot access. Then she turns her face away. She knows it lands hard, but she needs it to. Raymond needs a clear boundary, not a soft suggestion. The carriage eventually stops at a picnic ground near a large lake on the outskirts of the capital. Agnes recognizes it the moment she steps out. This is a place from Raymond's and the original Agnes's shared childhood. She sees through the entire setup immediately. Raymond tells her to sit and joins her, then asks if she remembers this place, if it rings any bells. She tells him she remembers the location but has no memory of coming here with him specifically. Raymond tells her she used to love it here, that she was always especially happy on rainy days at this exact spot. Agnes confirms she remembers the place, but the memory she is holding privately is vivid and completely intact. She remembers waiting by the water, the ferry that never came, and the two of them ended up playing in the rain anyway. But she is not giving Raymond that. The moment she senses him steering the conversation towards something deeper, something about his mother most likely, she cuts it off entirely. She says it is too cold, stands up, and walks back to the carriage without looking back. Raymond watches her go and takes a slow breath, and then something clicks in his mind. She knew exactly where he was going with that story. She redirected too precisely, too quickly. The realization settles over him like cold water. Agnes is not confused. She is not recovering. She remembers everything, and she is choosing not to acknowledge it. He turns it over, trying to find her reason, and the only one that makes sense to him is that she is giving herself an exit. A clean way to walk away without guilt, a freedom she never had before. And then, because Raymond cannot help himself, he lands on the most self-centered possible conclusion. She still loves him. She has always loved him, and if she is hurting this much, then he is no different from his father, a man who ignored and wounded the person devoted to him his whole life. Raymond makes himself a promise standing there in the rain. He will not let her go again. The next morning, Kyle arrives for his escort shift, and he is already off balance before he even reaches Agnes's door. The memory of her apology at the lake has been surfacing repeatedly, and he cannot get it to settle. Then he passes two maids in the corridor who are deep in conversation about a rumor that Princess Agnes went on a wonderful solo date with someone over the weekend. Kyle stops walking. His brain does something involuntary. Damien summons Raymond and receives him with the kind of calm smile that means he has already thought 3 steps ahead. Raymond notices immediately that Damien does not seem troubled by whatever happened between him and Agnes the day before, which is mildly suspicious. Damien produces 2 tickets to the Royal Theatre, explaining that he and Diana can no longer use them due to work. He asks Raymond to deliver them to Agnes and accompany her to the play. Raymond accepts without hesitation. Walking out with a letter in hand, he is already reading this as a sign. The timing feels too convenient to be accidental. He is not wrong about that, but he does not know the half of it. Meanwhile, in Agnes's room, the atmosphere is warm and easy. She suggests a picnic in the royal garden, pointing out that the sunlight is perfect today. Kyle is physically present and mentally somewhere else entirely. The rumor about Agnes and Raymond going on a date alone is sitting in his head and refusing to move. He keeps turning it over, asking himself what it means. Whether she still has feelings for Raymond underneath everything. Agnes calls his name twice before he snaps back. She asks if he is feeling well and tells him she has been trying to get his attention for a while now. He tells her he is fine and makes a decision internally to just ask her directly about it instead of spiraling. He starts to speak. Then Jeremy's voice cuts through the door with an apology and delivers the one piece of news guaranteed to make this moment worse. Raymond Spencer is outside asking to see her. Kyle was 2 seconds away from saying something real, and the universe intervened personally. Jeremy explains that he already told Raymond about Kyle's presence, and Raymond refused to leave, insisting Damien had personally ordered him to deliver something. Agnes immediately blames her brother internally and tells Jeremy to give her a moment. Raymond walks in and apologizes for the interruption. He presents the theater tickets, framing the whole thing as Damien's direct order. Agnes declines cleanly, telling him she already has plans with Kyle today. Raymond pushes back, questioning whether she is really refusing a direct order from the Crown Prince. He even announces there is a carriage already waiting outside. Agnes is trapped, and she knows it. But before she can figure out a way out, Kyle stands up and steps directly in front of Raymond. Raymond tells him to move and calls it nonsense. Kyle does not budge. He has been quietly reading the situation this whole time, watching Agnes's refusals, clocking her indifference toward Raymond, and arriving at one clear conclusion. Whatever Raymond thinks is happening between them, it is entirely one-sided, and Kyle is done watching him steamroll past every boundary Agnes sets. He tells Raymond plainly that the person protecting the princess now is him, not Raymond, and that her refusal was expressed clearly and deserves to be respected. He says it with the kind of steady calm that hits harder than shouting. Agnes is standing behind him, watching this unfold and feeling something shift in her chest. Her little kitten is standing in front of her like an actual wall, and she is not entirely sure when that happened. Kyle really chose today to become someone's knight in the most literal sense. But she catches herself, realizing that if it looks like she rejected Damien's order because of Kyle, it could create problems for him, so she pivots instantly. She announces she has changed her mind and will attend the theater, but only on one condition. Sir Grey comes with her. Both Raymond and Kyle turn to look at her with identical expressions of complete shock. They arrive at the theater, and Agnes immediately clocks how intimate the setting is. Private, close, completely staged for 2 people on a date. She knows exactly what Damien was trying to engineer. She is annoyed and impressed in equal measure. The only problem is that the date she is imagining involves Kyle, not the 2 of them plus Raymond standing awkwardly in the middle of everything. Kyle steps away briefly and asks Raymond to stay with Agnes while he is gone. The moment he disappears into the crowd, people start noticing. Whispers move through the theater about how perfectly matched Raymond and Agnes look together, like something out of a painting. Kyle catches every word on his way back, and it settles into him like something heavy. He returns to find Raymond draping something over Agnes's shoulders against the cold while she tries to refuse it. From the outside, it looks tender and natural. Kyle watches it and feels it somewhere he was not prepared for. He stands there thinking about what it would mean to watch her end up with Raymond, to only ever see their backs from a distance. Something in him refuses to accept that quietly anymore. He is done hesitating. He has swallowed everything down and calls it self-awareness. He makes himself a promise right there. From now on, he approaches first. Meanwhile, Agnes is sitting there thinking about how to return Raymond's jacket at the earliest possible opportunity and wondering why he is pressed so close to her like they are old friends. Then Kyle reappears from behind her and places a glass of water in her hand, explaining gently that he noticed her coughing and that the air was dry. Agnes goes still for a second. She thanks him warmly, and he hands her an opera glass. Just like that, the entire atmosphere around her shifts. Kyle presents the opera glass and explains that he asked the attendants to prepare it so her eyes would not strain. Then, without making a production of it, he quietly removes Raymond's jacket from Agnes's shoulders, hands it back to Raymond, and replaces it with his own, telling her it will be warmer and that she should let him know if she needs anything, because tonight he is her escort. Raymond watches all of this happen and has absolutely nothing to say. The performance begins shortly after. Agnes sits through what turns out to be the most predictable love story she has ever witnessed, watching it out of pure politeness while spending most of her mental energy trying not to turn around and stare at Kyle instead. She could watch him for hours and find it more entertaining than anything on that stage. Eventually, nature calls, and she excuses herself. She insists Kyle stay behind because she cannot exactly explain that she needs a moment away from the tension without making everything worse. The second she is gone, Kyle turns to Raymond and tells him to stop using Damien as an excuse to pressure the princess. Raymond pushes back, calling Kyle delusional for thinking his role as an escort means anything beyond the title. Kyle does not flinch. He tells Raymond directly that anyone paying attention can see how uncomfortable Agnes is, and Raymond should respect that. Raymond counters that maybe she is avoiding him out of consideration for his feelings. Kyle is about to respond when Agnes slips back into the entrance and stops. Neither of them notices her standing there. She looks at the 2 of them squared off in the middle of a theater. She thinks that she simply went to the restroom and came back to a live performance more interesting than the one on stage. Raymond and Kyle are still going at it, and neither of them is backing down. Raymond tells Kyle plainly that he does not understand the princess and is stepping well out of his boundaries. Kyle comes right back, pointing out that now that Agnes has forgotten everything, Raymond is suddenly trying to win her over, and every move he makes is only making things harder for her. Raymond fires back, telling Kyle that whatever he thinks is happening between him and Agnes, he should not confuse it with what Raymond and Agnes had. That same line he has used before, the one about Kyle misreading things. But this time, Kyle does not shrink from it. He thinks about how those words would have shamed him before, and realizes they no longer have that power. Agnes looks at him differently now. That is enough. He sweeps his hair back and meets Raymond's eyes. He then tells him calmly that he has no intention of sitting back and watching anymore. Raymond looks like he wants to say something to that, but the confidence in Kyle's posture makes it land differently than expected. And Agnes, standing just outside the doorway, witnessing all of this for the second time, is completely short-circuiting. Kyle swept his hair back, and the result was apparently catastrophic for her composure. She is standing there thinking about photo cards and high-resolution images and deeply mourning the fact that she cannot document this moment. The man pushed his hair back one time and she nearly forgot how to function. She knows if she walks in now, the awkwardness will be unbearable. She absolutely cannot get caught watching again, or the rumors will be truly unhinged. So she decides to make some noise, turn around, and pretend she was never there. Agnes makes enough noise to interrupt the standoff, and both men turn around. Kyle asks if everything is all right, and she tells him yes, completely fine, nothing happened. She sits down and then, with what she hopes passes as casual curiosity, she asks Kyle if he has ever considered pushing his hair back. Kyle immediately worries she dislikes his current style. She backtracks so fast it is almost funny, telling him he looks perfectly fine exactly as he is and that she was just asking out of curiosity, never mind it. Raymond sits through the rest of the play, watching these two exist beside each other and feeling something close to torture. Agnes's smiles, her eyes, the easy warmth between her and Kyle, none of it is directed at him, and every second of it is making his chest tighter. The carriage ride home is not much better for Raymond. He tries to suggest another theater outing, and Agnes shuts it down cleanly, saying theater simply is not for her, and there is no need to arrange anything further. Raymond says he will find something that suits her better instead, and Agnes is sitting there wondering why he cannot just accept a no. They arrive at the palace, and the moment she steps down from the carriage, she walks away from Raymond at a speed that says everything without saying anything. Raymond calls out a farewell anyway. Kyle watches her go and wonders if she is feeling unwell. Then Raymond leans out and tells him to remember his warning, to know his place. Then the carriage door shuts and drives away before Kyle can respond. Kyle stands there alone in the cold with that hanging over him. Then Agnes's voice comes from the entrance, telling him to hurry inside because it is cold, and just like that, the weight lifts. She wants to have tea together. Kyle follows her in. Meanwhile, Raymond is riding back in the carriage, absolutely seething, replaying Kyle's words about not sitting back anymore. He decides that if Kyle keeps placing himself between them, he will not let it go unpunished. Damien is pacing his office that morning, completely baffled. He has engineered every possible situation to push Raymond and Agnes back together, and nothing is sticking. By his calculations, they should already be reconciled and happily in love by now. The thought that Agnes might genuinely end up with someone else entirely, someone he has not accounted for, is making him sweat. He decides he has been too subtle and calls Agnes to his office immediately. Agnes arrives already suspicious, takes one look at her brother's face, and waits. Damien brings up the autumn ball and asks if she has chosen a partner yet. She says yes, she already has someone in mind. Damien smiles and makes his offer anyway. She suggests that she take Raymond as her ball partner in exchange for Kyle receiving a permanent, exclusive bodyguard appointment. Agnes's first instinct is to refuse loudly, and she does. But then her brain catches up. If she goes to the ball with Raymond and uses that public setting to highlight Kyle in front of everyone, the attention on Kyle could actually be more valuable than walking in on his arm. One ball is a small sacrifice for a long-term arrangement that keeps Kyle close permanently. She changes her answer, accepts the offer, and tells Damien this is the last ridiculous request she will be entertaining. Damien looks deeply satisfied with himself. He has absolutely no idea that he just helped her plan something entirely different from what he intended. Later, Kyle is in the middle of preparing his autumn ball outfit when Agnes casually mentions she is stepping out to get ready for the ball too. Something about the way she says it makes him start wondering which ball he should plan to attend. Then she turns to him with a bright expression and says she was actually hoping he would come to the ball as well. Agnes tells Kyle plainly that his absence from past balls had always weighed on her, that her own careless words were the reason, and that she wants to commission a suit for him as an apology. She says it without making it too grand, just honest. Kyle absorbs that quietly, and somewhere in the back of his mind, a hopeful thought forms that he immediately tries to push down. Maybe she wants him as her ball partner. The tailor, Lady Rowena, receives them and gets straight to work taking Kyle's measurements. She is not quiet about what she finds. She announces his arm circumference, marvels at his muscle tone, and declares his shoulders vast like the ocean. This generally makes the whole appointment feel like a live commentary. Agnes is standing to the side, smiling, telling Lady Rowena that those arms and shoulders have protected her more than once. Lady Rowena, meanwhile, is cataloging everything she is observing. This includes the way Agnes is looking at Kyle, warm and unguarded in a way she has never seen in over 10 years of dressing the princess. Then, Lady Rowena suddenly remembers she left her size record notebook upstairs. She presses the measuring tape into Agnes's hands, asks her to measure Kyle's chest in her absence, and disappears before anyone can object. Lady Rowena did not forget any notebook, and everyone in that room knows it. Agnes stands there holding the measuring tape and internally panicking. She tells Kyle they can simply wait for Lady Rowena to return, laughing it off as overwork on the tailor's part. Then Kyle says quietly that he does not mind if she is comfortable with it. Agnes's eyes go wide. She has no idea where this version of Kyle came from, but she respects it. She lifts the tape, steps closer, and decides she is going to enjoy this rare opportunity. As she gets close enough to measure his chest, she can hear his heartbeat, fast and loud, and she stops. She thinks about how whoever taught him to say something like that deserves her personal gratitude. Then she realizes his heart is pounding just as hard as hers. Agnes decides she cannot wait any longer and reaches around Kyle's chest to take the measurement herself. She pulls the tape and somehow ends up pulled directly into him. Her cheek pressed against his chest, held firmly in his arms. Kyle asks if she is okay. She says yes immediately, turning completely red. But internally, she is noting how warm and solid he feels, and genuinely considering just staying there. She catches herself, pulls back, and announces that she has the measurement and it should be fine. She stands up as if nothing happened. Lady Rowena's words about his chest size are echoing in her head, and she fully agrees. Then Kyle asks quietly if she has decided on a ball partner yet. Agnes pauses. She turns away slightly and touches her cheek, and tells him the situation kind of worked out a certain way due to unavoidable circumstances. Kyle fills in the blank immediately. Raymond Spencer. His hands start trembling before he can stop them, and he looks away. Agnes notices and starts explaining that she genuinely had no choice, that it was not something she wanted. Kyle just says, okay, quietly, and sits with the image of Agnes walking into the ball on Raymond's arm. He tells himself he can handle it. Then he says there is actually one problem on his end. Agnes asks what it is. He tells her he does not have a ball partner. He says he cannot imagine any young lady wanting to attend with someone like him. Agnes looks at him for a moment and then tells him plainly not to worry about that. Agnes has called Hazel in personally, which is already unusual enough to have Hazel walking through the door with her heart racing. She had never been summoned like this before and had spent the whole journey over trying to guess what it could be about. Nothing she imagined came close to what Agnes actually asked. She wants Hazel to attend the autumn ball as someone's partner. Hazel blinks. Agnes clarifies, voice dropping slightly, that she has nobody else she can ask. Hazel is sitting there processing the fact that the princess, who has never given her the time of day beyond one tense conversation about Raymond, is now personally requesting a favor. Agnes is doing her own internal calculations the whole time. She had originally planned to walk into that ball beside Kyle herself and use that moment to elevate his reputation. That plan is now Raymond's territory thanks to Damien's meddling. So the next best option is making sure Kyle still walks in with someone who turns heads, someone whose presence signals that he belongs in those spaces. Hazel is exactly that person. Agnes asks if she has already chosen a partner, and Hazel says no. Agnes offers her a trade, one favor of Hazel's choosing, anything reasonable, in exchange for attending the ball with Kyle. Hazel thinks about it for exactly 1 second, and then smiles and agrees. Then she uses her one wish immediately. She asks Agnes to make time for her. Just time. Nothing else. Agnes stares at her, completely thrown off, asking if that is truly all she wants. Hazel says yes, that is enough. Kyle is barely back from his mission, and his head is still full of the image of Agnes walking into the ball on Raymond's arm, when he looks up and finds his father standing at his door, the man he has been avoiding for weeks, standing there like he owns the place. They sit down, and Austin wastes no time, asking why Kyle has been ignoring his calls, why he could not spare a single moment to reach out. Kyle says he was busy. His father raises his voice. The pleasantries are over quickly. Austin gets to the real point fast. He has heard that the princess trusts Kyle, and that she keeps him close, and he wants to know if there is something there worth exploiting. His thoughts are almost embarrassingly transparent. He had tried pushing his other sons, Benjamin and Bradley, toward the princess before, and it went nowhere. But Kyle, with that face and that proximity to Agnes, might actually be useful. So he tells Kyle directly to seduce the princess by any means necessary, whatever it takes. He even goes further, suggesting that if Agnes were to fall pregnant with Kyle's child, that would be the ultimate leverage. Kyle's expression shifts completely. He tells his father to leave, then says it again, harder. Austin looks at those eyes, decides not to push further today. He stands up with a parting warning that if Kyle wants to keep the gray name, he had better not keep ignoring him. Then he walks out. Kyle is left standing in his own room, feeling like the walls just closed in slightly. His father showed up not to check on him, but to use him, and somehow that still manages to sting. Kyle sits alone in the quiet after his father leaves, and the silence pulls him backward into memory. He remembers arriving at the Gray household for the first time, full of something that felt like hope, believing he was finally stepping into a noble family. That feeling did not last long. The reality of being an illegitimate child who was handed a title out of obligation rather than love settled over him quickly and never really left. And now, with feelings growing for someone as far above him as the princess, the thought that his bloodline could taint how people see those feelings is unbearable to him. He thinks that if he could drain every drop of Gray's blood from his body, he would do it without hesitation, just to shed the label that has followed him everywhere. Time moves forward, and the autumn ball arrives faster than anyone is ready for. It is already one of the most important events in the capital every year. This season, it carries extra weight because of a declaration from the emperor that has everyone speculating about potential matches for the crown prince and princess. Agnes has spent days being bombarded with questions about Damien's preferences, and she is exhausted by it. Meanwhile, Damien himself is pacing a corridor trying to convince himself to move. Muttering that he has not committed any crime and has no reason to be nervous, he rounds a corner and runs into a guard who is on his way to ask Lady Diana to the ball. Damien does not say a word. He just walks straight to Diana's door. The moment she steps out and sees him, her face goes red immediately. Damien stammers something about a previous conversation, puts his hand on her shoulder, and insists she already agreed to attend the ball with him. He steers her back inside before she can argue. The guard is left standing in the corridor completely alone, wondering what just happened and who is going to take him to the ball now. Diana's face goes red the moment Damien extends his hand and formally asks her to be his partner at the autumn ball. She hesitates for just a moment, then places her hand in his and says, yes, saying it would be difficult for the crown prince to attend without a partner. Damien smiles. Back in his office later, he is writing and singing to himself with the energy of someone who has had a very good day. Raymond walks in, clocks the mood immediately, and asks what happened. Damien puts his pen down and tells him simply that he got a promise to attend the ball with someone. Raymond is confused until Damien clarifies that Agnes confirmed Raymond as her ball partner directly. Raymond's eyes go wide. The idea of walking into that ball beside Agnes again fills him with something he cannot quite name. Then Damien adds the condition. After the ball, Kyle Gray will be Agnes's sole escort. No sharing. That arrangement was the price of the deal, and there was nothing Damien could do about it. He tells Raymond plainly that this ball is the best opportunity to turn things around with Agnes. It might be the last one. Raymond looks down and clenches his fist. Meanwhile, Agnes is at Lady Rowanna's boutique, surrounded by shoes, gloves, and brooches, completely focused on making sure Kyle looks perfect at the ball. Lady Rowanna is presenting top-quality, handcrafted pieces, and Agnes is mentally coordinating every detail. She knows Kyle would look good in anything, but that is not the point. Every piece has to be right. Kyle is standing beside her, looking quietly uncomfortable with all of it. He tells her the suit she already commissioned is more than enough and she should stop worrying. Agnes cuts Kyle off before he can finish being humble about it. She tells him plainly that what she is giving him is nothing compared to the wounds she caused him. She wants to do this. She asks if he dislikes receiving things from her. Kyle immediately waves that off. So she turns to Lady Rowanna and buys all 3 sets without blinking. Rowanna thanks her warmly, and Agnes is already pulling Kyle along by the hand to the next thing. He has never been on the receiving end of this kind of care, not once. So receiving it from her of all people is almost too much to process. But she is glowing the entire time. Happy in a way that feels genuine and unhurried. And somewhere in the middle of all that, he thinks, if she is this happy, then maybe it is okay. The morning of the ball arrives, and the palace wakes up with it. Every corner is buzzing. The maids are moving in perfect formation under the chamberlain's direction. The kitchens are working through the night's menu with focus and precision. And right in the middle of all that organized chaos, Agnes is sitting still while her maids fuss over her hair and accessories, telling her she looks beautiful. She does. She sits there glowing and thinks that she just has to get through this ball safely. Then the story flashes forward. Raymond on his knees, telling Agnes he loves her. Kyle holding her in his arms, promising to take care of her from now on. 2 very different futures reaching toward her at the same time. Agnes sits in the present with that weight already on her shoulders and thinks quietly, but will I be able to get through this safely? Agnes is in her room being fussed over by her maids, looking every bit the princess she is. Emma asks quietly if everything is okay, and Agnes says nothing. The story rewinds slightly to show why. Earlier that morning, Emma had brought her a letter from Raymond's servant, explaining that Raymond had sent word about the color of his ball outfit so they could coordinate their looks. Agnes had looked at that letter and felt nothing but irritation. She had already ordered her outfit to match Kyle, not Raymond. She told Emma she would check it later and set it aside entirely. Back in the present, Raymond is standing outside the palace dressed in red, telling himself tonight has to be the night something shifts. He has already decided he cannot stomach the image of Kyle and Agnes together, and that he will do whatever it takes to prevent it from becoming reality. Then Agnes walks out. Raymond's eyes go wide. She is wearing a completely different color from what he specified in the letter. She walks straight past him without a word or a glance. Raymond absorbs that quietly and tells himself not to get caught up in small things. Tonight is what matters. They get into the carriage and Agnes sits across from him with a frown she is not bothering to hide. Raymond tries to break the silence by bringing up a black cat with red eyes he found being harassed by some knights at the Templar. Agnes's expression shifts the moment he describes it. Black fur. Red eyes. Agnes practically lurches forward in her seat, asking what happened to the cat. Raymond tells her he stepped in, alerted the knights, and the cat ran off into the grass on its own. Agnes laughs with visible relief. Agnes keeps going, mentioning that the cat actually belongs to a colleague and is the gentlest creature when held properly. Agnes feels something about that, the idea of an animal so soft and kind being treated badly simply because of how it looks. She says as much out loud. Then, catches herself, pulls back, and sits against her seat again. She tells herself to stop. Raymond is sitting across from her with his face quietly turning red, thinking about how for just a moment it felt like the old days between them. Warm. Easy. He holds on to that feeling carefully. The banquet hall is full and buzzing when they arrive. The announcer calls their entrance and every head in the room turns. The whispers start immediately. People are calling them beautiful. Calling them a perfect pair? Raymond offers his hand to support her as they walk in and the crowd eats it up, praising his consideration. Agnes takes his hand because she has no other option in front of this many people. But her eyes are already scanning the room. She spots Kyle and her whole face changes. He looks incredible in that suit. She is about to wave at him when their eyes meet and he immediately turns and walks the other direction. Agnes stops. She stands there wondering what she did wrong. Meanwhile, Kyle is internally spiraling because Agnes smiled at him so brightly that he completely lost his composure and walked away like a fool to recover. Hazel appears beside him and mentions how beautiful the princess looks tonight. Kyle turns red and agrees quietly. From across the room, Agnes watches the two of them talking and tells herself she is glad. Hazel is exactly the right person to help Kyle feel comfortable in these spaces. His happiness comes first. That is what you do when you care about someone. She keeps repeating that to herself like she is trying to convince her own heart. Because even with all the logic in place, something in her chest keeps pulling in a direction she did not plan for. Kyle arrives at the ball before Agnes with Hazel, and the old familiar chill of the ballroom hits him immediately. The sharp looks from nobles. The cold air that carries a specific kind of contempt he has learned to recognize. He braces himself. Then something unexpected happens. A nobleman walks straight up to him, calls him by name, and starts praising his work protecting the princess with genuine warmth. Then another approaches. Then another. Kyle stands there, shaking hands and accepting compliments he does not quite know what to do with, internally aware that most of this attention exists because of the princess standing behind his reputation. But he holds on to the fact that at least one or two of those gazes feel like they are actually seeing him. He makes a decision. He turns to Hazel, asks if she minds him stepping away to greet the princess, and she waves him off immediately. Kyle does a small internal celebration that he would never admit to out loud and starts moving through the crowd. The ballroom is packed and every step toward Agnes feels like pushing through a wall. He keeps excusing himself through the crowd. Thinking about how, without her favor, even getting close enough to speak to her would have been nearly impossible. He is almost there, close enough that she should be able to hear him. He calls out her name. And at that exact same moment, Raymond's voice cuts through from the other side. Hand already extended toward Agnes, using the crowd of watching eyes as the perfect pressure to make refusing impossible. Agnes clocks the trap immediately and takes his hand anyway because she has no choice. Kyle watches it happen from 3 steps away. He stands there and tells himself he already knew it would look like this. They belong to the same world. He never fully did. On the dance floor, Raymond looks directly at Agnes while they dance. Agnes looks anywhere but at him. Agnes is annoyed at how Raymond keeps looking at her with those eyes, but something catches her off guard. Her body just moves with his. No conversation needed. No effort. Like muscle memory built from years of being around each other. It is natural in a way that bothers her more than she wants to admit. Raymond mentions that dancing with her reminds him of when they used to practice together as children, that she loved dancing back then. Agnes says she cannot remember and means it more literally than he knows. He tells her that her body clearly remembers, even if her mind does not. She agrees quietly. Then she reminds herself firmly that moving in sync on a dance floor means absolutely nothing about what is in her heart. Raymond leans closer and Agnes's first thought is that he is way too close. Meanwhile, Kyle is standing at the edge of the crowd watching every second of it with his fists clenched at his sides. He is watching the way they move together and thinking about every difference between himself and Raymond. Status. Background. The world Raymond was born into versus the one Kyle had to fight his way through. He had let himself hope, just for a moment, that he and Agnes could have something as simple as a walk together without the world laughing at the idea. And now he is standing here watching someone who fits perfectly into her world hold her like it is the most natural thing in existence. He tells himself that being eaten alive by jealousy like this is pathetic. Across the ballroom, the Saintess is watching Raymond and Agnes dance, and barely holding herself together. She had spent the entire day before the ball preparing to ask Raymond to be her partner. She dressed up carefully, she rehearsed, she was ready. Then she overheard someone mention that Raymond and the princess were already attending together, and the whole plan collapsed before she even opened her mouth. In her mind, the princess just reaches out and takes whatever she wants without effort or consequence. The Saintess stands in that ballroom with her jaw tight, telling herself she will not just let this go. She needs another approach. Hugo Rodion appears beside her, holding 2 glasses of wine and complimenting her warmly. She is not interested. He offers her a drink and she tells him no. He tries again and she knocks the glass right out of his hand, tells him no a second time, and walks away without looking back. Hugo is left standing there in a wine-stained outfit, looking deeply sad about his evening. The dance finally ends and Agnes extracts herself from Raymond as quickly as socially acceptable. She is immediately surrounded by ladies flooding her with compliments about how graceful she looked. She smiles through every single one of them. The moment there is an opening, she slips away to find Kyle. She spots him across the room and moves toward him with energy she has not had all evening. She tells him she has been looking for him everywhere and immediately compliments how incredible he looks. Almost on cue, other guests nearby start chiming in too, telling Kyle his charm is shining tonight and asking about the brooch. Agnes stands there watching people pour attention onto him and feels deeply satisfied. Agnes figures she has done enough. Kyle is receiving attention. People are noticing him. Her work here is done and she can gracefully step back. But before she can move, Kyle reaches out his hand and asks her to dance. Agnes freezes. She actually blurts his name out loud in shock before she can stop herself. Kyle is already internally calling himself an idiot for acting on impulse. But the music starts, and Agnes smiles and takes his hand anyway. The moment they start moving, Kyle steps on her dress and apologizes immediately. His mind has gone completely blank. It has been too long since he last danced, and now he is doing it with her of all people. Agnes notices the nerves written all over him and decides to pull his attention somewhere else. She asks if he is enjoying the ball. He admits it is still awkward and a little embarrassing. She laughs and says she hopes he used the evening to build connections. Kyle asks quietly whether someone like him really belongs mingling with nobles. Agnes tells him without hesitation that everyone in that room is dying to befriend him. Kyle goes quiet for a moment and then says that as much as that may be true, he enjoys being alone with her the most. Agnes misses a step. She asks him to repeat himself. The music stops. Kyle smiles and says, "It looks like their dance ended a little early." Agnes is still standing there trying to process what he just said when Raymond's hand clamps around her wrist and he pulls her toward him, voice rising above the crowd as he demands to know what Kyle thinks he is doing with his partner. It's about to go down. Enjoying this? Comment Princess for part 3. Until next time, ciao!